بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده أما بعد. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are very excited, alhamdulillah, to host one of our very first courses through an educational initiative taken by Masjid Quba. And we'll talk more about this, inshallah, towards the end of the course, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. But alhamdulillah, it's so apt that we have our honorable, respected guest, Ustadh Muhammad Tim Humble, to initiate this course for the brothers here at Leicester. And alhamdulillah, we have brothers and sisters who are joining us online from various countries and cities throughout the world, alhamdulillah. So we will begin with this, inshallah, course very quickly, inshallah, as we have a lot to go through. Just a few things that I want to mention. A sheet of paper is being passed around. I want the brothers who have registered for the course to put their names, their email address and phone numbers, inshallah. For those that have completed the course, we'll give them a certificate of completion, inshallah. Likewise, question Q&A towards the end of the session, inshallah. So if you do have any questions like that, you can note it down and we'll have that towards the end of the course. We will have a break in between, and that will be for Salat al-Maghrib, inshallah. And that will, the brothers will go downstairs and they will come back upstairs for that, inshallah. I'll pass over to Ustadh Abu Bakr, inshallah, and then we'll begin the course, inshallah.
Inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام الأتمان الأكملان على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين أما بعد. From the favors of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala upon the Muslim is that he gives him this opportunity to learn, and that learning is to attain knowledge of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, knowledge of his religion, knowledge of his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so he can follow him, and so that you can attain that Jannah that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala promised the believers. And so this cycle of knowledge that you begin is very important. And with that comes this book that we'll be covering today, bi'idhnillahi tabarak wa ta'ala, and that our Sheikh Muhammad, Jaza'allahu khairan, so gracefully accepted and wanted to teach in reality. And this is the book, Ta'zeem al-Ilm, honoring knowledge. Because knowledge, the one who attains it, is the one who understands its value and truly follows that up with action. And that goes by way of the points, inshallah ta'ala, that the book will go through and that the Shaykh will explain, bi'idhnillahi tabarak wa ta'ala. And so this is the gateway to knowledge. We have to value it. And these sorts of books are immensely valuable. And this is why that famous barnamij, that program, that would occur in Masjid al-Nabawi once a year. And the author is the one that used to teach that program, Sheikh Saleh al-Husaymi. He used to start that program of learning where he used to go through a number of books in that few days, about 8 days or so, with this book, Ta'zeem al-Ilm, every single year, so you understand the value of knowledge and then you get into it. And so we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us from those who understand the value of knowledge, and that, you know, this meaning truly develops in their heart, and that because it persists with us throughout life, so we seek more and more knowledge. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us from those who act upon that knowledge as well. Ameen, and I'll hand over to the Shaykh. Jazakallah khair.
This one is okay. We can leave it, inshallah ta'ala.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So I would also like to begin with a very, very short introduction. First of all, to extend my thanks to the masjid, the administration of the masjid, especially to our Sheikh Abu Bakr, Jazallahu khairan, for inviting me and for allowing me to come here. And it's really an honor, honestly. It's an honor to be able to teach beneficial knowledge. It's an honor to be able to meet all of you. It's an honor to be able to sit in a masjid from the masajid which Allah Azza wa Jal has allowed us to remember his name in, for us to come together for a few hours and to study such a beautiful text with so much benefit in it. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una wanfa' bima 'allamtana wazidna ilma bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to teach us what will benefit us. We ask Allah to benefit us through what He teaches us. We ask Allah to increase us in knowledge. We ask Allah to give us the ability to act upon it. And I would like to extend a special welcome also to the AMAU students who might be watching this online. As usual, I sit in front of me with, alhamdulillah, there are more students than cameras, walillahi alhamd, but there's a lot of cameras. One of them is responsible for sending out to the AMAU students. And for the AMAU students today, I do apologize if the connection is a little bit on and off. We do have a proper recording that we will upload later on, and we do our best with the live stream. As you know, live streams are up and down depending on lots of different things. The book that we have today, actually, I really wanted for it to be read in the Arabic language, and that was our intention. And it was organized for the text to be read to you in Arabic. However, I looked at it and I'm a little bit concerned if we read it in Arabic and in English, I'm a little bit concerned that we won't have time to finish the book. And I'm very keen to finish the book with you in a summarized form. For that reason, I said, let's just read the titles in Arabic, inshallah. And maybe in the final edited version of the video, we can insert the Arabic recitation or the Arabic reading in there as well, inshallah ta'ala. Just because I'm very concerned that we have a lot of information to cover and we might not be able to cover it completely if we were to read the Arabic and the English. However, I would say to you this, for you to have studied this book, you need to have heard it read in Arabic. So don't take the book off as done until you've done that. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll provide it for you on a video. We'll put it on the AMAU platform for you, inshallah ta'ala, on the YouTube channel, so that you can actually just listen to it and mark off the fatha, dhamma, kasra, the words, correct them in your book, inshallah ta'ala. Does that make sense? So I'm leaving that part out for now, just so that we don't lose our time. However, I don't want you to finish this book without going through the text. I just want you to have to do it in your own time, inshallah ta'ala. This text, the first thing we have to know about it, we have to know the name of it, we have to know the author, and we have to know the topic. Very important basic things that you have to know, along with the benefit of it, the fruit of it. I think these are important things. And I'm not going to cover the entire introduction to seeking knowledge in terms of before the book, because I want to get into the text. But I do want to just give you some key points. The first thing is the name of the book. The book is called Ta'zeemul Ilm. And my particular choice of title, but there are various different translations out there, is revering knowledge. And when I use the word revering, I'm using the word revering as in respecting and honoring and venerating this knowledge. Does that make sense? What the word revering means? To put something in a very, very high status, to raise something up, to make it very, very honorable and very important to you and very respected. So I want you to think about three themes constantly throughout this book. I want you to think about respecting knowledge. Very important. Giving knowledge its proper respect. I want you to think about the honor of knowledge and honoring it, giving it honor, respecting its honor. And I want you to think about the importance of knowledge. All of those things come inside the word ta'zeem. And I've chosen to call my particular translation revering knowledge, but you can call it There are different names: honoring knowledge, reverence of knowledge, revering knowledge, venerating knowledge, different names that are there. I chose that one, but these are the themes we're talking about. Tayyib, Ikhwani, which ilm are we talking about? I'm going to give you a principle. Whenever we talk about ilm in the Sharia, in the context of Islam, we are talking about al-ilm al-shar'i, the knowledge of the Sharia. We are not talking about ilm al-tib or ilm al-handasa or any of the ulum dunyawiyya, the worldly knowledge. Bear in mind, I don't like the word secular for that. I don't like to call it secular knowledge. We don't have anything secular in Islam. Worldly knowledge. We're not talking about that. Because we're asking Allah, Allahumma la taj'ali dunya akbara hammina wala mablagha ilmina wala ila an-nari masirana. Oh Allah, don't make this dunya our biggest concern, and don't make our knowledge limited to this dunya, and don't make the fire our final destination. So the ilm that we're talking about, the ilm that is the easiest way to Jannah by Allah's permission, the ilm which the Prophet ﷺ was told to say, وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا, my Lord, increase me in knowledge. The ilm which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah raises those who believe among you and those given knowledge in many levels. The ilm which the Prophet ﷺ said, وَإِنَّ الْعُلَمَاء وَرَثَةُ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ. The ulama are the inheritors of the prophets. That ilm which Allah Azza wa Jal said about it, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. The only people who really are scared of Allah among His servants are the ulama. That ilm is al-ilm al-shar'i. It can never ever be any of the ulum dunyawiyya, any of science or medicine. How beneficial it is to the ummah, Allahumma barik, it's beneficial. But never ever did these texts come about that knowledge, not even from a distance. The texts which came about the virtue of knowledge, they came about the virtue of Islamic knowledge. Like the hadith of Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Man yuridillahu bihi khayra yufaqqihhu fi ad-din." Whoever Allah wants good for, He gives him fiqh, detailed, in-depth understanding of the deen, of the religion. And that's why He didn't say He gives him fiqh in medicine or engineering or what serves the ummah, or He makes him give lots of sadaqah from his business. And that's all khair. Wallahi, there's khair kathir. Don't get me wrong. There's so much good in it. But that's not the knowledge which the Prophet ﷺ said about it. مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Whoever Allah wants good for, He gives him fiqh in the religion. So this is about honoring, respecting, revering, and the importance of Islamic knowledge in all of its fields. So we're not talking about fiqh as in al-furu' al-fiqhiyya, like al-fiqh al-shafi'i, wal-maliki, wal-hanbali, wal-hanafi. We're talking about the religion as a whole. And the religion is broken into many sub-sciences, ikhwani, as you, I'm sure, know. There is the science of aqeedah, all about your beliefs and what you hold fast to and what defines you as a Muslim. There's the science of al-furu' al-fiqhiyya, which deals with your day-to-day actions, like how you make wudu and how you pray and how you fast and marriage and divorce and business transactions and all of that. There is the tafsir, which is understanding what Allah intends by His speech. There is the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, riwayatan wa diraya, the narration of the hadith, the chains, and the knowledge contained within it. There is a seerah, there is the Arabic language with all of its branches. All of these are sciences within Islam, and all of them, if a person is learning them for the sake of the deen, In other words, they are learning them to reach the Qur'an and the Sunnah and to worship Allah Azza wa Jal as Allah created you for. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. We only created the jinn and men to worship me alone. Then this is the knowledge of Islam that we are honoring, revering, respecting, and giving importance to. This book is a book that falls under a category of knowledge that we call sometimes different names, but sometimes we call it the knowledge of al-adab or adabu talib al-ilm, the knowledge of etiquette or the etiquette of the student of knowledge. And this, broadly speaking, falls under a wider topic of at-tarbiyah, nurturing a person and your own spiritual and personal development. So if we see spiritual development as a topic, developing yourself as a Muslim, what does spiritual development mean? We're talking about the idea of purifying yourself. And the word zakah comes with two meanings, right? At-tathir wa-nama, cleaning and building. So if we talk about clearing out the things that shouldn't be there and building up the things that should be there, that is the general topic of at-tarbiyah al-islamiyah that we're talking about, Islamic personal development. Within there, there is a topic on developing yourself as a student of knowledge. How do you actually go about seeking knowledge? What are the etiquettes, the behaviors? What are the ways and means that you should be seeking knowledge within the religion of Islam? Let's try. Maybe now. I'll keep it very close. No, we're trying just for the sisters to be able to hear, inshallah ta'ala. Let me do one thing. If I just move this a little away from myself and I move this one a little bit closer, I think we can get it so that the sisters can hear nicely, inshallah ta'ala. Within this idea of personal and spiritual development, how do you learn? What are your etiquettes? How do you behave as someone who wants to seek Islamic knowledge? Because as we're going to hear from the Shaykh, the theme of the book is basically the more you respect knowledge, the more you revere knowledge, the more you honor knowledge, the more you give importance to knowledge, the more knowledge you will get. And the less you revere knowledge, and the less you honor it, the less you respect it, the less you give importance to it, the less knowledge you will get. That is khulasatul kitab, the whole summary of what the Shaykh is saying. From the beginning of the book to the end is the more you revere knowledge, the more you honor it, respect it, and give it importance, the more knowledge you will get. And the less you do so, the less knowledge you will get. Now, if we've understood that concept, we see the importance of learning this first of all. And my brothers and sisters, I want you to understand tariqatul salaf, the way of the early generations is to begin with this science first, before everything else. That they would learn al-adab, they would learn etiquettes and how to behave before they would learn al-ilm, before they would learn the knowledge itself. And that is because learning this in relation to learning knowledge is like learning wudu in relation to learning to pray. Without wudu, your prayer will not be accepted. And without learning how to behave and how to take this knowledge properly and give it its proper respect, you just won't get the knowledge, however long you study. And I want you to think about something. It's very profound. I want you to think about something. Keep this in your mind. How many people do you know who have studied Islam for years and years and years and are still at a very basic level of Islamic knowledge? And have you maybe seen one or two people just started studying relatively recently and already that person has achieved quite a significant achievement in that period of time? What made this happen? After the tawfiq of Allah Azza wa Jal, it is what the Shaykh is going to speak about in this book. So you can see this book as a roadmap to seeking knowledge. As someone giving you a set of instructions and saying, Ya akhi al-kareem, you want to be min ahli al-ilm, you want to be a person of knowledge, khudh minni, take this from me. This is a step-by-step instruction how to achieve this. In simple steps. And the Shaykh made it extremely easy to understand. And extremely simple and well structured and well ordered for you to have a roadmap from who? From our Shaykh, Shaykh Salih bin Abdullah bin Hamad al-Usaymi, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala. The Shaykh is still with us, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala. He is one of the senior scholars of Saudi Arabia. And the Shaykh wrote this. So you're not getting this book from someone who studied a few years in a university. You're getting one of the most senior scholars that we have in the world today saying to you, my brother, here is my instructions to you and my roadmap to you. How do you study Islamic knowledge and how do you get it? From someone who has got it. And the Shaykh, one of the things, there's many things, subhanAllah, we don't have time for a biography of the Shaykh, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala. Like, one of the most interesting things is that the Shaykh studied a significant amount of his time in India. Maybe not a lot of people know that about the Shaykh. The students of the Shaykh know it. Like, maybe not a lot of people know, because it's not usual for the ulama of Saudi Arabia, right? Not normal that we see from our mashayikh in Saudi that they study outside of the Mamlaka because there's so much knowledge there. And the Shaykh spent a significant amount of time in India studying. And he is recognized as being one of the senior scholars of this generation that we're in now. And his aura where he teaches this book is attended by thousands upon thousands of people. He used to teach it every year, and we hope the Shaykh will continue. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. There was a pause for some time. We hope that the Shaykh, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, will be able to continue. And many people traveled to Medina to sit with the Shaykh while he was teaching. And this is the first part that he teaches in his kind of summer course that he used to teach. The first part, the first book. And it's a small text. It's not very long. It's a small text. And it's extremely beneficial. So you can see it as a roadmap. And my advice to you when we start it, very simple. My advice to you, my brothers and sisters, is keep coming back to this book. What I mean is, if you feel your knowledge slowing down, you feel maybe your hifth of the Qur'an, maybe your understanding, your lessons, maybe you feel like you're watching a lot of videos, but you're not necessarily building up your knowledge, come back to this book. For wallahi, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, for the one that Allah opens their heart and gives them the tawfiq, you'll find the answer as to why you're struggling in this text. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. The Shaykh, he began Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, seeking the help of Allah Azza wa Jal through mentioning his names, particularly Ar-Rahman, the most merciful, and Ar-Rahim, the bestower of mercy. And that's the difference between the two names. Ar-Rahman is the description of Allah's infinite mercy, and Ar-Rahim describes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowing and giving out that mercy to whoever he wants. And this here is worth remembering, that if we say that Islamic knowledge is part of Allah's special mercy, meaning he doesn't give it to everybody, he gives it to those that he loves, Islamic knowledge, then bear in mind that people are not given it equally. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by all of his names, especially his name Allah, the one deserving of worship and having the attributes of divinity, and his name Ar-Rahman, the one with infinite mercy, and Ar-Rahim, the one who gives out his special mercy to whoever he wills. From here on, we're going to mostly read the English text. And every now and again, I will read important quotes to you in Arabic, inshallah ta'ala. And if Allah Azza wa Jal makes it easy, we will add with this video on the AMAU YouTube channel, we will add the reading of the Arabic as well, so that you can check against it, inshallah ta'ala. The translation is as follows: all praise is for Allah, for as long as there are those who glorify His greatness, and for as long as there are learners with desire treading the path to Him. I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah alone and with no partner, a testimony by which we can escape the net of making a partner with Allah and therefore be incumbent to be saved from the fire of destruction. Very briefly, the Shaykh mentions that the testimony, La ilaha illallah, that testimony is the one that saves you from ash-shirk, making a partner with Allah. And therefore that testimony is the one that saves you from the fire of Jahannam. And then he says that I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is his slave and messenger. His Lord sent him with guidance and the religion of truth. أرسله ربه بالهدى ودين الحق. Al-Huda here, it means al-ilm al-nafi', beneficial knowledge. And deen al-haq, it means al-amal al-salih, righteous actions. That is the meaning of هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق. He sent him with beneficial knowledge and righteous action. Therefore, these two things, for someone who wants to complete guidance, they want guidance for themselves, they want to be guided, they have to bring these things together. That is beneficial knowledge and righteous action. If you bring beneficial knowledge, but you don't bring righteous action, you are at risk of being from al-maghdubi alayhim, the people Allah is angry with. And if you bring actions that do not have any knowledge behind them, you are at risk of being from ad-dallin, the misguided people. So the only person upon the sirat al-mustaqim is the one who combines al-ilm al-nafi' wal-amal al-salih, beneficial knowledge and righteous action. لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ, to make it manifest over all other religions, even if the disbelievers hate it. He conveyed his message and delivered it. He rendered his trust and made it plain. Through the da'wah of the Prophet ﷺ, the clearest of proofs were set out. And through his clarification, false notions and arguments were rebutted. He left us the legacy of the straight and clear path and the noble sunnah, in which nobody who seeks it can be lost, and nobody who takes hold of it can be held back from it. May Allah exalt his mention and grant him safety, and to his family and his companions, for as many times as the number of people who learn and the number of people who teach. Can you count the number of people who learn and teach? It's like the Shaykh is saying, give salah and salam upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam an uninnumerable amount of times, any more than you can possibly count. To proceed, knowledge does not cease to be a great legacy in which people of nobility follow one another generation after generation. So the first point we want to take here is that knowledge is the inheritance of the prophets. وَإِنَّ الْعُلَمَاء وَرَثَةُ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ وَإِنَّ الْأَنْبِيَاءَ لَمْ يُوَرِّثُوا دِينَارًا وَلَا دِرْهَمًا وَرَّثُوا الْعِلْمِ فَمَنْ أَخَذَهُ أَخَذَ بِحَظٍ وَافِرٍ أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. The scholars are the inheritors of the prophets. And the prophets did not leave behind gold and silver coins. They left behind knowledge, so whoever takes it has taken a great portion of good. So what does that mean? The fortunate people, the people of good fortune is not luck. If you want good fortune, they are the people that Allah has given them the success to inherit from the prophets alayhimus salatu wassalam. And who has inherited from them? Every generation has people who inherited from the generation before. So the Sahaba, they took from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Tabi'een, they took from the Sahaba, and the Tabi'ul Atba', they took from the Tabi'een, and they passed it on generation after generation, this legacy which is the inheritance of prophethood. For those who seek out things of high value, there is no other concern but this, and no other goal besides this. The Shaykh's talking here about ulu al-himmah, high aspirations. If you want the most value, if you want something that is worth more than gold and silver, the greatest thing you can invest in and give your time to is to invest and give your time to Islamic knowledge. How could it not be so when the happiness of both worlds and the good of both lives are achieved by getting it? That's the reality. Happiness in the dunya and the akhirah, and success in the dunya and the akhirah, and goodness in the dunya and the akhirah come from beneficial Islamic knowledge and righteous action. And if you doubt me about the dunya, then perhaps you would recite the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. If only the people of the towns had iman and taqwa, we would have opened for them the barakah of the heavens and the earth. Yani with Islam, you can open up the barakah of the heavens and the earth by Allah's permission. It is the honor of everything that exists and the light of every peak and valley. It is the adornment of the great and the pleasure of those who behold it. Whoever is inclined towards it is blessed, and whoever carries it around with them has gained a great prize, and whoever acts according to it will be safe. And from this is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُمْ بِظُلْمٍ أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمُ الْأَمْنُ وَهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. Those who believe and do not mix up their belief with oppression, which is shirk, they are the ones who will be guided, and they are the ones who will be safe. So Allah Azza wa Jal promised safety and guidance to the people of Iman, the people who have righteous, beneficial knowledge and righteous actions. Those are the people who are guaranteed to be safe. If it were a product that was sold, huge amounts of money would be spent on it. If it were high up in the sky, the people of nobility would have risen up to get it. Out of every marketplace, it is the most profitable. And out of every source of pride, it is the most honorable. Achievements in it are the most noble of achievements. Its resources are the most praiseworthy of resources. The eternally happy is the one who spurs himself to seek it and encourages the journeying of his soul towards it. The wretched is the one who turns away from it, or he makes others do so, and distances himself from it, or makes others do so. Notice the Shaykh mentioned two types of wretched people. One is the one who he himself distances himself from it. And worse than that is the one who makes other people far away from it. He tells people, why are you wasting your time here? Don't sit in these gatherings. There's more you can do. You're not a talib ilm, you're not a student of knowledge. Go and do a business instead. You'll benefit from that better. Go to university. Then after that, you can seek knowledge when you're old. This person is worse than the one who doesn't do it himself, because he started to do the role of the shaitan in pushing the people away from learning their religion and discouraging the people from it. His nose is blocked from the fragrance of knowledge, and his neck is sealed with the words, هَذَا عَبْدٌ مَحْرُومٌ. This is a slave who is bereft. Mahroom, he's lost it. He's not going to get, he's been forbidden from this good. And then the Shaykh, he quoted some poetry. وَالْعِلْمُ يَدْخُلُ قَلْبَ كُلِّ مُوَثَّقٍ مِنْ غَيْرِ بَوَّابٍ وَلَا اسْتِئْذَانٍ وَيَرُدُّهُ الْمَحْرُومُ مِنْ خِذْلَانِهِ لَا تُشْغِنَ اللَّهُمَّ بِالْحِرْمَانِ. Knowledge enters the heart of every successful one without any doorman or seeking permission. And the one who is mahroom, the one who's not going to get it due to his failure, he repels it, he rejects it. Oh Allah, do not make us wretched by prohibiting us from it. So the Shaykh has talked about why it's important. He said if this was a product, it would be the most profitable. If it was high in the sky, the people of knowledge and nobility would have climbed up to get it. It is the best thing you can busy yourself with. And the Shaykh, he says, from that which fills a person with happiness, expands his chest and fills it with light, is to see creation turning to the sittings of learning and seeking out its straight path. The clearest and most truthful proof of this is the increasing number of lessons and the continuous stream of educational seminars, a sweetness in the heart of the believers and a wound in the throats of the disbelievers and the hypocrites. For lessons are being carried out and journeys, meaning journeying for knowledge, is ongoing. The benefits are there for all to see and the people are yearning. The scholars bring out the pearls of knowledge and the students set about arranging them. Wallah, it's beautiful what he said. And wallahi, it fills my heart with happiness to see when I come to a masjid, the people saying, can we study a book of knowledge? Can we study a small text? Can we sit together and learn something together instead of just a reminder or a maw'idha? And no doubt this is the sweetness in the heart of every believer. Because we are not a people of hasad. We are people who want for our brothers and our sisters what we want for ourselves. So when we see people coming to the masjid and filling the hall and sitting to make notes and studying, wallahi, we believe and we hope and we ask Allah that Allah Azza wa Jal brings out of them people of knowledge. Perhaps those people of knowledge themselves will actually surpass the person that they learned from. Is that not possible? رُبَّ حَامِلِ فِقْهٍ إِلَى مَنْ هُوَ أَفْقَهُ مِنْ. Maybe someone will carry knowledge to someone more knowledgeable than them. Perhaps knowledge will be transmitted to you today and one of you will take it and will surpass the level of the people that were sharing that knowledge with you many, many times over. وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. If we're going to compete in something, we're not going to compete in who has the biggest car or who has the nicest house or who has the most bank balance. We want to compete in ilm, in knowledge, and try to push each other to take one step higher every single time. The scholars bring out the pearls of knowledge. It's the job of the scholar to bring out that knowledge. And the student notes it down and puts it and arranges it and orders it and revises it until that student themselves takes that position one day of bringing out that knowledge for the people and those pearls for the people. Then the Shaykh, he said, from the acts of goodness towards this upcoming multitude, he means the huge number of students and the generations to come, is to guide them to the secret of possessing knowledge. Pay attention to this. This is why the Shaykh is writing the book. He wants to guide you to the secret. There is a secret. He says, you think that you just sit down in some halaqat and you become an alim? Do you think you just go to an Islamic university and you become an alim? Do you think that you just watch a few videos on YouTube and you become an alim? There is a way, there's a recipe, there's a tried and tested method. There's a tried and tested method. Really, for anything. There's a tried and tested method for seeking knowledge which will give them the success to achieve what they hope for and will take them to a place of safety. That's what he wants for you. The Shaykh wants for you to be successful. And the Shaykh wants for you to reach, to be safe in your knowledge, not to be misguided, not to become from the Imams who misguide the people. In some of the narrations, the Prophet ﷺ said, Inna akhwafa ma akhafu alaykum. The thing that I'm scared for you the most is what? Al-a'immah al-mudillin. The Imams who misguide you. The people of knowledge who misguide you. The Shaykh said, I can teach you a secret. How to get this knowledge and how to get it in a way that maintains the safety of your deen. for you as a learner and then later on as a teacher, out of a mercy towards them, so they are not lost in the desert of opinions and the darkness of desires. Allah, Allah. That's the reality of what we're in. Ask anyone today, go to the masjid, when the regular people who come for the salah, ask him, in this religion, what is the thing that makes you the most problem? Wallahi, people will honestly say, ikhtilaf, so many different opinions, everyone says this is right, I don't know which way to go. And the desires, I know what's right, but wallah, I can't do it. That's all that misguides the people. There is nothing else that sends a people astray except for ash-shubuhat wa shahawat. Confusion, misconceptions, and desires. Confusion, you don't know the answer of what's right and wrong. And desires, you know what's right, but you choose to do what's wrong. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِينَ. In implementing this principle, it is beautiful to speak, O believers, about revering knowledge. And I'm going to read to you what the Shaykh said in Arabic here. فَإِنَّ حَظَّ الْعَبْدِ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ مَوْقُوفٌ عَلَى حَظِّ قَلْبِهِ مِنْ تَعْظِيمِهِ وَإِجْلَالِهِ. This is the great principle. This is the purpose of the book. This is the summary of everything the Shaykh wrote. This line. فَإِنَّ حَظَّ الْعَبْدِ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ مَوْقُوفٌ عَلَى حَظِّ قَلْبِهِ مِنْ تَعْظِيمِهِ وَإِجْلَالِهِ. The extent of a person's knowledge is dependent upon the amount that his heart reveres it and honors it. So whoever's heart is filled with reverence of knowledge and honoring it, the heart is suitable to be a place where knowledge resides. Depending on the extent to which knowledge is lacking in the heart, your knowledge will be lacking, to the extent where there are hearts in which there is no knowledge at all. Look at anyone today, from the greatest scholar on the face of this earth to the most ignorant person among the general Muslims. And you will see the reason that one is there and this one is here is nothing other than this principle. The amount that your heart honors, respects, reveres knowledge. And the amount your actions give testimony to what is in your heart. And here I want to clarify that point, and the Shaykh mentions it in any case, but I want to clarify it here. أَلَا وَإِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةً إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي القلب. Indeed, in the body there is a piece of flesh. If it is righteous, the body will be righteous. So if your heart reveres and honors and respects knowledge, also your actions will revere, honor and respect knowledge. And if your heart is lacking respect of knowledge, your actions will be lacking respect of knowledge. And there are some hearts in which there is no knowledge at all. Whoever reveres knowledge, its light will be apparent on him. That's what I talked about, the connection between the heart and the limbs. You don't need to look into his heart to know whether he honors knowledge or not. You can see upon a person whether they honor it. And the messengers of its sciences will come to him in delegations. Knowledge will just come to him like he's a magnet for knowledge. If he honors knowledge properly, knowledge will come to him as though he's a magnet for it. He will just, here and there, it will just keep coming from every valley and every mountain path. There will be no purpose in the book of knowledge within his Sunan, which is named Al-Musnad Al-Jami', with a chapter about revering knowledge. It says, though Ad-Darimi, who wrote his Sunan Ad-Darimi, which is called Al-Musnad Al-Jami', that he concluded it with a chapter on revering knowledge as though he's teaching you this. The greatest of help in achieving the reverence of knowledge and venerating it is to know the principles of revering it. So now the Shaykh is going to set out, how is he going to teach you this? You've understood. Every one of you now has understood the purpose of the book. But now the Shaykh is going to tell you, how am I going to do this? I'm going to share with you principles. They are comprehensive principles, those which establish the greatness of knowledge in the heart. Whoever takes them on board will be one who reveres and honors knowledge. And whoever forsakes them has truly lost himself and obeyed his desires. So he must not blame anyone but himself if he is deficient in it. يَدَاكَ أَوْكَتَ وَفُوكَ نَفَخ. This is a famous Arabic proverb. يَدَاكَ أَوْكَتَ وَفُوكَ نَفَخ. Your own hands tied the knot and your own mouth blew into it. The story is this. Very simple, nice story. That there were a group of people on an island or a peninsula, and they had to swim to reach their destination. And they were not very good at swimming, so each of them had a water skin. You know what a water skin is? Before you had plastic bottles, you had a water skin, right? Like a pouch that you fill with water. So each of them, to help them swim, emptied the pouch of water and blew air into it, like that. And then they tied the neck of the water skin so it would become a float. And they started swimming. And while they were swimming, one of the men started to sink. The float started to go less and less and less. And he called out to his companions, saying, help me. They said, يَدَاكَ أَوْكَتَ وَفُوكَ نَفَخ. Your hands tied the knot and your mouth blew into it. Who are you blaming if your float fell? If your float doesn't have any air in it now, you're the one who blew in it. You're the one who tied the knot. You're the one to blame. So it became a proverb used when you want to say that you have no one to blame except yourself. Your own hands tied the knot and your own mouth blew into it. Don't say, I didn't get knowledge because I didn't have a teacher. I didn't get knowledge because my sheikh was not available. I didn't get knowledge because I was too old to go to a university. يَدَاكَ أَوْكَتَ وَفُوكَ نَفَخ. The reason you didn't get knowledge, my brother, is because your own hands tied the knot and your own mouth blew into it. So if you find there's not enough air in your pouch, then you can have no one to blame except yourself. And that is all of us. Wallahi, every one of us looks at themselves and says, I should have more. What is this, worthless, tiny amount of broken products that I have? Why do I not have something better than this? Look in the mirror and say, يَدَاكَ أَوْكَتَ وَفُوكَ نَفَخ. Your hands tied the knot and your mouth blew into it. And the one who does not honor knowledge, knowledge will not honor him. وَمَنْ لَا يُكْرِمُ الْعِلْمَ لَا يُكْرِمُهُ الْعِلْمُ. Very beautiful, easy to remember. If you don't honor knowledge, knowledge will not honor you. And if you don't show that respect for knowledge and that status of knowledge, knowledge is not going to honor you by making you a person of it. The Shaykh, he says, we will bring forth, Allah willing, a discussion of 20 principles through which knowledge can be revered, without going extensively into them, since the situation cannot accommodate it. And going into them to the full extent of every point would need a prolonged amount of time. The intention here is to enlighten and remind, since something small which remains and benefits is better than something vast, which is delivered and then forgotten. And that is true what the Shaykh said. So he's going to tell you, I'm going to share 20 points. I'm not going to share 20 points with loads of information. I'm going to share 20 simple points with you in brief, in summary, and through these 20 points, you will be able to extract a lot more information after that. So take the biggest portion from these principles and you will gain the best portion of the beautiful gardens of these sciences and the gardens of knowledge. Stay away from inclining towards the statements of people whose hearts have been veiled and who themselves have become weak. So they mistakenly believe that these reports are full of exaggeration and burden, and unconvincing strictness. What does he mean by that? What reports? He means that when the Shaykh is going to tell you about how the early generations revered knowledge and respected it, some people are going to say, this is takalluf. This is just too hard. Akhi, I can't do this. Give all of your time to knowledge and make knowledge the most important. These are people who've passed away. Just don't ask us about what they used to do. He said, don't listen to these people. For a wall has been placed between those people and these principles with a door, its interior containing mercy, and on the outside of it is torment. These people do not have for their claim the proofs of legislation which would give truth to it, nor events observed which would support it. It is nothing more than the excuse of the weak-minded and the proof of the impotent. The Shaykh is saying very clearly here, they don't have a dalil for what they're saying. They tell you can't do it. You can't be like those people were. They don't have a dalil from the Qur'an or the Sunnah to support it. And experience shows that in our time, there are people who respect knowledge and revere it and give it its due respect. Don't listen to the weak-minded and the impotent. What kind of exaggeration and burdening are found in something which revelation gives witness to and the early generations took to? Every point among these is proven by an unequivocal ayah, an accepted sunnah, or narrations from the best of the generations past. So the Shaykh said every one of these 20 principles has an ayah with no doubt about the tafsir of it, or a hadith, there is no doubt about the acceptance of it, or narrations from the best of generations that passed. So if you trust their veracity and you've internalized their knowledge and the information they contain, do not let your aspirations be tied up by the sermons of laziness and dawdling, going into them while they proclaim, هذه أحوال من مضى من سلف الأمة وخير الورى فأين الثرى من الثريا. These people, they say, this is the stories of the people who passed and the best of mankind, how they used to be. Where is the sand in comparison to the stars? Do you understand that? That's what these people are saying to put you off. They're saying another famous proverb, where is the sand in comparison to the stars? Akhi, we live in today, we're like the sand. And those people are like the stars. You cannot tell me to achieve what they achieve. You can't tell me to aim. You can't tell me to look at what they used to do. You can't tell me how much they used to read or how much they used to study or how much they used to spend for knowledge. Leave that aside. We are just the sand and they are the stars. The Shaykh then said, rather the one who raises himself to mirror their standards will achieve it. فَتَشَبَّهُوا إِن لَمْ تَكُونُوا مِثْلَهُمْ إِنَّ التَّشَبُّهَ بِالْكِرَامِ فَلَاحُ. Resemble them, even if you can't be like them. Resembling the noble one is itself success. And this is the Shaykh's answer to those people. They say, why are you reading about how the Tabi'een used to be and the Sahaba used to be? Akhi, where are you today? You are living in Leicester, in the UK, in all of this fitna and these problems, and you're looking at how the Sahaba used to be. Akhi, leave us what the Sahaba used to be like. Leave that aside. They are the stars and we're the sand. We say to them what the Shaykh said. فَتَشَبَّهُوا إِن لَمْ تَكُونُوا مِثْلَهُمْ. We're not saying you're going to become Sahaba, but try to be like them. Try to resemble them. Because even resembling the noble one is success. No one is saying that you're going to read these 20 principles and become Sahaba. Or Imams of Islam like Al-Imam Abi Hanifa wa Malik wa Shafi'i wa Ahmad. Rahimallahu jami'. Or that suddenly you're going to become the greatest scholar of your generation. Lekin at least you are trying to resemble those people. So what should we do? Should we all be content not to resemble them, give up, put our books away, go home and be jahil? Or should we say, فَتَشَبَّهُوا إِن لَمْ تَكُونُوا مِثْلَهُمْ? Try to resemble them, even if you're not going to be exactly like them. إِنَّ التَّشَبُّهَ بِالْكِرَامِ فَلَاحُ. Resembling a noble person is already success. And I'll give you an example of that. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You have in the Messenger of Allah the best example. My dear brothers, if you have an example in the Messenger of Allah, if you follow his Sunnah, are you going to become a prophet? You're not going to become a prophet. No, how much of the Sunnah you implement, you're not going to become. Like, is there a command to resemble the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You have the most excellent example. Resemble the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Resemble the Sahaba. Resemble the Imams of Islam, even if you're not going to be them. Because resembling a noble person is itself success. You're successful already. You already won if you resemble those people. If you are similar in the way that your attitude and what you're trying to do and achieve, even if you don't even achieve 1%, or even if you don't even achieve 0.01%, the fact that you're trying to resemble the best of this ummah is in itself success. So let your heart bear witness to these principles and reflect upon what was transmitted about them and what you understand from them, and extract from their literal evidences and what is understood from them. For words are the depositories of meanings. So the Shaykh is now giving you an instruction. For each one of these principles that goes on, we want you to do what? First of all, accept it to be true. Look at it and accept that this is one of the secrets to achieving knowledge. Reflect about them. And reflect about what you have understood from them. And take out from the mantuq and the mafhum. And from the literal words, take the benefit. And from what is understood beyond the literal words, take benefit. Because ultimately, where do we take all these meanings from? All these meanings come out of the words that are in front of us. So give them a good amount of your attention, and bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, you will achieve the goal that you're looking for. And I want to add one very small point here, which is it's a confusion a lot of people have, and it's something that holds a lot of people back, which is this very vague and undefined word, alim, scholar. And I say it's vague because if you look at the definition of the word alim over the time of Islam, you will find that it has changed massively as time goes on. So I don't want you to get hooked up on this word, on the word scholar. I want you to focus on getting knowledge to benefit yourself and to benefit the people around you. Because when you get caught up on this word, either you say, I'm never going to be one of those ulama, for which you don't have a proper definition, so how will you ever be from them since you don't have a definition of what they are? And you change the definition depending on what you feel like. Is it a mujtahid, or is it someone who is a muqallib, but is it someone who's got a good knowledge of Islam, or someone who's got exceptional knowledge of Islam, or what? Like it's something that has changed over time. It has a good definition and it's easy to explain, but I don't want you to be hooked on this issue. And I don't want your ikhlas to go trying to be a personality, or a person who is known. I want you to focus on knowledge that will correct you and the people around you. And the rest, leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of what you reach and what you achieve. You'll find it a lot easier than making yourself attached to something which either you get this feeling that I can never achieve it, or you're constantly saying that I have not achieved it. Like, and there's a point, which is that the very nature of the people of knowledge is the more knowledge they get, the more humble they become, so the less likely they consider themselves to be people of knowledge. So the more you study, the less likely you'll consider yourself to be a person of knowledge. Does that make sense? And your study goes like that, your view of yourself goes like that. The more knowledge you get, the less you view yourself to be a person of knowledge. So you're chasing something that you're not going to practically benefit from. Instead, concentrate on أن تنوي رفع الجهل عن نفسك وعن غيرك. As similar to that is reported from Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, that you make the intention to remove ignorance from yourself and from other people. المعقد الأول, the first principle, تطهير وعاء العلم, purifying the vessel of knowledge. The Shaykh said it is the heart. This is a vessel, right? Yani a container that you put something in. What is the container that you put knowledge in? It is the heart. Everything which is sought after has a vessel. Everything has a place where you store it. And the vessel of knowledge is the heart. The uncleanliness of the vessel muddies it and spoils what is in it. Knowledge will enter the heart according to its purity. If its purity increases, its readiness for knowledge increases. The example of knowledge in the heart is like a lamp. The cleanliness of the glass is what causes its light to spread. And if it is covered in dirt, its light will disappear. Want to take a similar example? Take this water bottle. Would you drink from this water if the bottle inside of it was dirty? You wouldn't. Would you be able to appreciate the cleanliness of it if the outside was all covered in dirt and grime? You wouldn't even know if the water is clean inside. This heart, if the heart is not clean, it's not a place for knowledge. So whoever wants to possess knowledge, let him adorn his inner self and let him purify his heart from its impurities. Knowledge is a delicate jewel. It is not appropriate for anything other than a clean heart. So we understood what the Shaykh is saying. You want knowledge, it depends upon the cleanliness of your heart. And my brothers and sisters, remember that everything in this book is relative. What we mean is the more you do it, the more knowledge you get. The less you do it, the less knowledge you get. So your heart, it's not just heart is pure, tick. Nothing in the book is like that. There is nothing in this book which is just tick exercise. It is about striving for more and more and more. The more you push yourself for it, the more knowledge you will actually get. Purity of the heart goes back to two great principles. Number one, طهارته من نجاسة الشبهات. Number two, طهارته من نجاسة الشهوات. Purifying it from the impurity of false notions. What's a false notion? The word shubha is something that has a resemblance to the truth. يشبه الحق من جهة, while it's not the truth. So we don't call something that is just falsehood, we call it batil. So you guys understood, you have haqq, you have batil. You with me, shabab? وَمَاذَا بَعْدَ الْحَقِّ إِلَّا الضَّلَالِ. You have haqq and batil, truth and falsehood. Okay? The falsehood, that is clear. For example, worshipping an idol. Does anybody think that, oh, maybe, I don't know, should we worship idols? Ustadh, I haven't studied that part yet. Do we worship idols or we don't worship idols? Batil, yani you know it from the first minute of your life as a Muslim, you know. But there are things that are not the haqq. They are not the truth. But they resemble it. What about if I said to you, my brothers, is it not true that the awliya of Allah have a special status in the sight of Allah? Is that not true? من عاد لي وليا فقد آذنته بالحرب. Whoever is an enemy to a close servant of mine, I declared war upon him. Is it not true that the awliya have a position in the sight of Allah? Is it not befitting for us to ask Allah through their position? It's batil, right? It's not true. It's not haqq. لكن يشبه الحق من جهة. It has a resemblance to the truth from a particular angle. It has a grain of truth. Shall we call it that? A shubha is something that has a grain of truth in it, while it's not true. And the second thing is ash-shahawat. And for the shahawat, you know that it's wrong. You know that it is wrong. You know, but your heart, inna an-nafsa la'ammaratun bis-su', the soul is constantly inclined towards evil, and you just, just one time and I'll make tawbah later. This is what dirties the heart. This is what makes this impure to drink. Two things go inside of it that makes it impure to drink. One is misconceptions, false ideas. The other one is desires, knowing something is wrong and doing it anyway. Since the purification of the heart is of such great importance, the Prophet ﷺ commanded it to be done from the very beginning of his call, based on the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. The Shaykh here takes the view it's a view from some of the scholars of tafsir, that وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ, it means purify your inner self. And that has a line or lines of poetry that support it. That's one view in the ayah. And the Shaykh said, it is a good opinion which has been derived in a sound way. He said, if you are shy that a created being like you should see your dirty clothes, then be shy of Allah looking at your heart when there is rancor, afflictions, sins and faults in it. That's a beautiful statement. Underline that, put a circle around it and read it to yourself. If you're shy that a human being sees you with dirty clothes, how can you be happy for Allah to see you with a dirty heart? And Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that Amr al-Naqid narrated to us saying, Kathir ibn Hisham narrated to us saying, that Ja'far ibn Burqan narrated to us from Yazid al-Asam, from Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, with this report that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Inna Allah la yanzuru ila suwarikum wa amwalikum, walakin yanzuru ila qulubikum wa a'malikum. Allah does not look at your physical forms and your wealth, but Allah looks at your hearts and your deeds. Beware of the hidden things within yourself, which when they come out against you, they break you with humiliation. That's a line of poetry the Shaykh mentioned. Whoever purifies his heart, knowledge will settle within it. And whoever does not get rid of its impurities, knowledge will bid him farewell and move on. If you were to look at the circumstances of a group of the students of knowledge in terms of this principle, you'd see an obvious flaw. How can the reverence of knowledge exist in a person who lets false notions and desires enter his heart morning and evening? A forbidden image calls to him. A deviant statement kindles his desire. Evil things fill him, as does finding pleasure in forbidden things. In him is malice and corruption, stubbornness and jealousy, hypocrisy and opposition. How can such people have knowledge? They are not from its people, nor is it from them. And he quotes from Sahel ibn Abdullah Tustari rahimahullah ta'ala, that he said, Haramun ala qalbin an يدخله النور وفيه شيء مما يكره الله عز وجل. It is forbidden for a heart, for a light to enter a heart. What is light? When light comes in the Sharia generally, what does light mean? أو من كان ميتا فأحييناه وجعلنا له نورا يمشي به في الناس كمن مثله في الظلمات ليس بخارج منها. Generally, the word light means knowledge, usually, when the word light comes in the text of the Sharia. It's forbidden for light to enter a heart which has within it something which Allah, mighty and majestic, hates. Just in the next minute or two before we stop for the salah, just look at what the Shaykh said. Forbidden images, deviant statements, pleasure in forbidden things, malice, corruption, stubbornness, jealousy, hypocrisy, and opposition. Wallahi, ikhwani, how many of us are full of these things? And then we ask ourselves, why did we not get knowledge? but I went to so many durus, I attended so many lessons. Forbidden images, listening to deviant statements, pleasure in forbidden things, malice, corruption, stubbornness and jealousy, hypocrisy and opposition. All we have to do is to turn back to Allah Azza wa Jal, to repent, to clean that heart of those things, and to strive to keep it clean. And ikhwani, in this, your heart is like the windows. Yani if you leave them, they just get dirty again. You have to clean them regularly, all the time, for them to remain clean. The more efforts you make to clean that heart, the more knowledge will enter into it. And that's just one principle from the 20 principles, inshaAllah ta'ala. Again, we took the introduction and we took the first principle, and now we will stop for the Maghrib prayer, bi'iznillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala, and we'll resume afterwards with whatever Allah has made easy for us to conclude of the book. هذا والله أعلم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So once again, I'm going to try to keep this microphone as close as I possibly can so that everyone can hear us, inshaAllah ta'ala, well. المعقد الثاني إخلاص النية فيه. The second principle, purity of intention in seeking knowledge. So the Shaykh spoke about the first principle. And even if you don't memorize everything here, at least memorize the principle itself that the Shaykh spoke about, ta'zeem al-ilm, and try to remember the order of the principles one after the other. So the first one was purifying the vessel. تطهير وعاء العلم, purifying the vessel that knowledge is stored within. And the second is إخلاص النية فيه, sincerity of intention in seeking knowledge. The Shaykh, he said, the translation of which is, Hafidhahullah ta'ala, making actions sincere is the foundation of their acceptance and the stairway to reach them. As Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ. They were not commanded except to worship Allah, making the religion sincerely for Him as pure monotheists. And Al-Bukhari said, in Al-Jami' Al-Musnad Al-Sahih, that's the name of Sahih Al-Bukhari, and Muslim in his Musnad Al-Sahih, that's known as Sahih Muslim, and the wording is that of Al-Bukhari, saying that Abdullah ibn Maslama narrated to us that Malik informed us from Yahya ibn Sa'id, from Muhammad ibn Ibrahim, from Alqamah, from Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and he transmitted it that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Al-a'malu bin-niyyah wa likulli imri'in ma nawa. Actions are according to the intention, and every person will have what they intended. Ikhwani, very briefly, because we should definitely speak about this. When we speak about niyyah, there are two things that we speak about. One is, who are you doing this action for? Is it for Allah or is it for other than Allah? And that's the intention here. And the second thing is, what action are you doing? Because in practicality, there is no difference between zakah and sadaqah except for the niyyah. And in reality, when a person is traveling, there is no difference between dhuhr and asr for the musafir except a niyyah. Here, what is meant مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ. The Shaykh talking about making the religion for Allah Azza wa Jal alone and not making any partner with Him. Al-a'malu bin-niyyah. We sometimes have a different wording. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. They're just different wordings of the same hadith. Actions are according to intentions, meaning actions will be judged, will be given account according to the intention for which they were done. And every person will have the reward of what they intended. So the first, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, speaks about how actions are judged. And the second sentence, وَلِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى, speaks about how they will be rewarded. So your actions are judged by your niyyah and they are rewarded by your niyyah. The Shaykh, he said, nobody from those who have preceded did so. Yani those who came ahead, those who went ahead. And I think it would be better if we change that word preceded. I wanted to change that word if possible. Maybe we can say advanced might be a better word. Or gone ahead. Nobody from those who have advanced or those who have gone ahead did so. Nor did anyone from those who arrived at their goal from the predecessors do so, except because of sincerity for Allah, Lord of the worlds. So just like you're not going to get knowledge with a dirty heart, you're also not going to get knowledge unless it is sincere for Allah Azza wa Jal. Abu Bakr al-Marrudi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, I heard a man say to Abi Abdullah, yani Abu Abdullah meaning Al-Imam Ahmad bin Muhammad ibn Hanbal al-Shaybani, the great Imam who died 241 after the Hijrah, rahimahullah ta'ala, وَذَكَرَ لَهُ الصِّدْقَ وَالْإِخْلَاصِ. He mentioned truthfulness and sincerity. فقال أبو عبد الله, Al-Imam Ahmad said, rahimahullah ta'ala, بِهَذَا ارْتَفَعَ الْقَوْمِ. It is this that raised up these people. The reason these people got raised up and the reason these people are above you is because of these two things. الصِّدْقُ wal-ikhlas. Sincerity and truthfulness. You truly want it. And you're willing to give up other things because you truly want it. That is a sidq. And al-ikhlas is that you want it for the sake of Allah. So if you want to think of sidq as wanting it, truly wanting it and not wanting anything else. And you want to think of ikhlas as wanting it for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. A person only achieves knowledge to the extent of their ikhlas. Sincerity in knowledge is built upon 4 principles, which the proper intention for knowledge is achieved. Bear in mind that Imam Ahmad summarized these principles in 2, and this is a more extended version. Imam Ahmad said, أن ينوي رفع الجهل عن نفسه وعن غيره, that he intends to remove ignorance from himself and others. You with me? That was what Imam Ahmad said about correct intention, about correct niyyah. In seeking knowledge, he said to intend to remove ignorance from yourself and from others. But the Shaykh is going to go into more detail in this division, which is taqseemun ruba'i. It's a division into 4. The first one is to remove ignorance from yourself by acquainting himself with the acts of servitude which he's obligated to do and being aware of the objectives of the commands and prohibitions. So you want to remove al-jahl from yourself. My brothers and sisters, think about the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal. إِنَّا عَرَضْنَا الْأَمَانَةَ عَلَى السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَالْجِبَالِ فَأَبَيْنَ أَنْ يَحْمِلْنَهَا وَأَشْفَقْنَ مِنْهَا وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانُ إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. Your state is what? Without Islam, without knowledge of the Sharia, you and me, we have the description of ظَلُومٌ جَهُول, extremely oppressive, extremely ignorant. But what removes that is seeking knowledge and practicing it. And when you seek knowledge, you remove from yourself the title of Jahul, yani Jahil. And when you practice it, you remove from yourself the title of Zalum or Zalim, the oppressor. The second one, removing ignorance from creation by teaching them and guiding them to which will correct their worldly life and their hereafter. So I don't just want to remove ignorance from me, because if I remove ignorance from me, I'm still in the classification of the ubbad rather than the ulama. Do you understand the difference between the abid and the alim? You know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, وَفَضْلُ الْعَالِمِ عَلَى الْعَابِدِ كَفَضْلِ الْقَمَرِ عَلَى سَائِرِ الْكَوَاكِبِ. The virtue of the scholar over the worshipper is like the full moon over the tiny stars. Notice the Prophet ﷺ didn't say the virtue of the scholar over the fasiq, over the one who doesn't practice Islam. He said the virtue of the scholar over the abid, the one who prays all night and fasts all day. Why? Because the abid, however much he worships or she worships, their worship is constrained to themselves. And the only person they benefit is themselves. And sometimes they do the benefits like sadaqat for other people and what have you. But the benefit, generally speaking, is very limited. It's only when you share your knowledge with others that this is where the virtue of the alim comes. Because the alim is the one who, by Allah's grace and guidance, produces 1,000 of the ubbad. 1,000 worshippers come from that person. Rather, 100,000, some of them come from that person. One worshipper versus someone who is like a factory in producing these ubbad by Allah's permission. One after the other, the people come and they learn to worship. Rather, they don't just learn to worship. They learn to worship and they teach others. And then they have students and they learn and they teach. So from this one person, perhaps millions upon millions of people correct their worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. And this example, the greatest example of this, is the example of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I don't know if you guys have ever seen, but some people out of ignorance, they say, I do some of my prayers for them to be rewarded to the Prophet, to be gifted to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in reward. I don't know if you've seen people do that. I've seen people do that. They say that I pray my fard for between me and Allah and my sunnah, and I pray some extra prayers to give them to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is not allowed. Lekin, I'll tell you why this is so foolish. Every prayer you pray, the Prophet ﷺ is rewarded for it automatically, because you didn't know how to pray except because of him teaching you after Allah's grace. He taught you by teaching the Sahaba. And you didn't know how to pray except because of Allah and the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ and the efforts of the Sahaba in spreading this religion. And then. So this is why the scholars give such importance to zakatul ilm, the zakah of knowledge, which is just like when you've got money, you have to pay zakah. When you've got knowledge, you have to pay zakah. But your zakah is not gold and silver. Your zakah is to pass that knowledge on to others. And it's a way to multiply the reward of the scholar. Because now that person is not just themselves worshipping. Remember, the scholar always worships themselves. If they don't worship themselves, we don't call them a scholar in the first place. Does that make sense? If they don't do the ibadah, we don't call them a scholar. Yani if they don't pray, they don't fast, they don't give zakah, they don't give sadaqat, they're not an alim to begin with. They're an alim when they do it themselves and then they correct the people around them. The third, remember these first two, Al-Imam Ahmed sufficed with them. That was what Al-Imam Ahmed said, these first two. The Shaykh brings from some of the ulama two more. Bringing knowledge to life and protecting it from being lost. And in this knowledge, if nobody teaches it to the people and nobody studies it and nobody learns it, it will become lost. Of course, people will know how to pray Fajr and Dhuhr and Asr, but this detailed knowledge of the religion would be lost. And acting on that knowledge and putting it into practice. Putting it into practice. The Shaykh, he said, knowledge is a tree and action is its fruit. Knowledge is only sought, underline this, knowledge is only sought in order to act upon it. We don't seek knowledge for any other reason than to act upon it. We don't have any other reason. There is no reason for us to learn except to practice. Ikhwani, if you are learning, and your level of practicing is going down, know that your learning is not just a waste. It's a punishment upon you if you don't change. Al-Qur'anu hujjatun laka wa alayk. The Qur'an is either a proof for you or against you. That doesn't mean that you should stay ignorant and don't learn, but it means you have to practice. The early generations, may Allah have mercy on them, used to fear the loss of sincerity in their seeking knowledge. So they would refrain from claiming to have it out of caution and piety, not because they did not really have that knowledge in their hearts. Al-wara', being cautious in your deen, having a taqwa. فَلَا تُزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, don't purify yourselves. And you don't claim yourselves to be pure. How many great scholars, if they were asked, would say, I'm just a small student of knowledge. They had that knowledge, but they were scared to say they had it. Whereas in our time, people say they have it who don't have it. And that is one of the differences between the early generations and our time. In our time, many people claim knowledge that don't have it at all. And in their time, many people had knowledge that didn't claim it at all. Hisham Dastuwai, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, by Allah, I cannot say I went for even a single day to seek knowledge of hadith, seeking the face of Allah, mighty and majestic. And I'm not going to be so brave to say that I was truly sincere. I have to doubt myself and question myself and wrestle with my intention. Al-Imam Ahmed was asked, did you seek knowledge for Allah? He said, for Allah, that is something hard or something rare. But it was something that was beloved to me, so I sought it. And he said, I don't want to be so bold. I don't want to be so arrogant to say, yeah, it was all for Allah. I love to do it, and I did it. And I hope that it was for Allah. It is befitting for the one who is seeking to be safe to examine this point. Namely, sincerity in everything that he does, whether something small or something great, whether something in secret or something done openly. And that means you should ask yourself about your intention before you do something, and you should ask yourself while doing something, and you should ask yourself after having done something. The Salaf rahimahumullah ta'ala would question themselves in three places: before, during, and after every action. He brings to bear in this act of seeking knowledge, struggling immensely to correct his intention. Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah ta'ala said, مَا عَالَجْتُ شَيْئًا أَشَدَّ عَلَيَّ مِنْ نِيَّتِي لِأَنَّهَا تَتَقَلَّبُ عَلَيْهِ. I never wrestled with anything harder than correcting my intention. I never struggled with anything harder than correcting my intention, because it turns on me. Rather, Sulaiman al-Hashimi rahimahullah ta'ala said, perhaps I would narrate a hadith with a certain intention. And when I would come to a certain part of it, my intention would change. So a single hadith requires multiple intentions. Underline that point. فَإِذَا الْحَدِيثُ الْوَاحِدُ يَحْتَاجُ إِلَى نِيَّاتٍ. One lesson, one reading, one sitting requires many times to correct your intention. Don't say my intention was right when I walked in the room. My intention was right when I finished Maghrib. My intention was right when I started listening. It requires constant checking, revision, questioning, wrestling, struggling with your intention. Al-Ma'qid al-Thalith, the third principle. جمع همة النفس عليه, gathering and focusing all of your intention on seeking knowledge. Focusing all of your attention on seeking knowledge. So we talked about what? Can we remind ourselves? Number one was purifying the vessel, purifying the heart. Number two was sincere intention. Number three is focusing your attention on it. Meaning that you don't have a himma, you don't have a goal or a dream or a drive for lots of things. And I say this wallahi to the brothers I see in da'wah, that the brother is there, he wants to be a talib ilm, but he also wants to be a YouTube influencer. And he also wants to be a successful businessman. And he also wants to be wealthy. And he also wants to live a nice life. And he also wants to excel in sport and fitness and all of these different things. And the self-help industry and all of that. Okay, the reality is, it's true, you can do all of those things, but the knowledge will be less. What did we say about this book? We said it is always relative. And if you want to be an influencer and a sports star and a wealthy guy and an entrepreneur and all of that, no problem. If it's halal for you, Bismillah wa ala barakatillah, go for it. Lakin know this, as long as you share this motivation of knowledge with other things, you're going to end up with less knowledge. That's reality, Ikhwani. That's reality. Is it the case that you might still get those things? Of course. Because Allah might give you the dunya without that himma, without that goal and drive and motivation. Like, and if you get up every morning and say, right, I got to make sure my fitness goals and my health goals and my finance goals and my goals for my whatever I'm doing in this and my business goals and my entrepreneurship goals and my knowledge goals, then the end result is going to be that you're going to end up with 1/7 of the knowledge you would have had if you had only a goal for seeking knowledge. That's reality, Ikhwani. I know it's hard. I know it hurts. I know you listen to it and think, but I had a plan. Sahih, no doubt, wallahi, but this is the truth. This first thing you have to do is admit what the Shaykh said is true. That's reality. I'm not saying don't work, don't do anything, be lazy, just claim benefits. I'm not saying that at all. Like, where is your drive? Where is your himma? What do you get up for in the morning? What is the one thing, if you could have success in one thing and one thing only, what would it be? Akhi, what are you? Are you an entrepreneur or are you a talib ilm? Only one thing. If today an angel came down and said, Allah has decreed for you success in one thing and one thing only, what do you want it to be? You choose. This is what the Shaykh is talking about here. What's the one thing that you choose? And I'm not saying you can't have those other things, Ikhwani. I'm not, honestly. But I'm saying that the more you split your attention, the less knowledge you're going to get. That's just simple facts of life. The Shaykh, he said, the split nature of a person, if it is then pulled together to seek knowledge, it congeals and combines. And when it's busy with knowledge and other things, it increases in disparity and disarray. Attention can only be focused on a goal by checking 3 things. So now the Shaykh is going to tell you, how do you focus your attention? What does it mean to have focused attention on a single goal? Number 1, a keenness for what benefits, such that whenever a person is given the success to do what benefits them, they want to stick to it. Rather, not just that, even in looking for it in the first place. I have a chance to do this really good thing in my life and I'll make a good amount of money, but I also have a chance to study this book. If you choose the book, and that's the first thing. And what is it? What is it that you are keen for? What is it that you get up out of bed and the first thing you look for in the morning and the last thing you think about at night? What is it? If that keenness is for beneficial knowledge, that's the first thing. And when you get that knowledge, you don't want to let it go. Wallahi, when you think what it's like to sit down and write, some of the khulafa, you know, like the Khalifa, the head of the Caliph in charge of all of the Muslims, some of them were asked, is there anything that you didn't achieve in your life? Is there anything you really wish you could have done? And he's in charge of all the Muslims. He's wealthy, he's got everything. And he replies and says, the short version of which, I just wish that I could have sat in a class of hadith. Once you get that sweetness, you can't take it away. You become hooked on it. You become addicted to it. The way people are addicted to social media, the way people are addicted to their phones, the way people are addicted to whatever people are addicted to. You become addicted to this ilm. You can't let it go. Every single chance you get, you take it. Traveling, money, whatever I have to do, it doesn't matter to me. Because you're addicted. The second thing is that you seek Allah's help. Ikhwani, if you look at this knowledge, you will see a mountain that you can't see the top. You will see a mountain that is bigger than the Jabal of Uhud. But honestly, إِنَّمَا الْجِبَالُ مِنَ الْحَصَى. Mountains are made out of pebbles. Seek Allah's help. Just go with baby steps. Ask Allah to give it to you. This knowledge is a gift from Allah. It doesn't come how hard you work. Work as hard as you want. You're not going to get what you want without Allah's help. And the third, and the Shaykh quoted a line of poetry, إِذَا لَمْ يَكُنْ عَوْنٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ لِلْفَتَى فَأَوَّلُ مَا يَجْنِ عَلَيْهِ اجْتِهَادُهُ. If there is not help from Allah for a young man, the first thing that will transgress against him is his own judgment. I actually really love that line of poetry. I put a little mark in my own notes on it. The first thing that's going to betray you is your own judgment. If Allah doesn't help you, the first thing that will let you down is not somebody betraying you, not your enemy. The first thing that will let you down if Allah doesn't help you is your own decision making. And the third is do not feel helpless. These three things are found in the hadith narrated by Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj, that he said that Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shaybah and Ibn Numayr narrated to us, saying that Abdullah ibn Idris narrated to us from Rabi'a ibn Uthman, from Muhammad ibn Yahya ibn Hibban, from Abi Hurayrata radiyallahu an, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, the translation of which is, we'll read the Arabic first of all, احرص على ما ينفعك واستعن بالله ولا تعجز. Be keen for what will benefit you, seek the help of Allah, and do not feel helpless. Khwani, I want you to write down next to this the perfect explanation of qadr. As a fa'idah, this hadith, that sentence there, explains exactly what you should get out of believing in qadr. If you've understood qadr correctly, that should be your understanding. Be keen for what benefits, seek Allah's help, and do not feel helpless. So whoever wants to focus his attention on knowledge, let him light within himself the burning flame of keenness, because that knowledge benefits him. Rather, every good in this world and the next is the fruit of knowledge. And let him seek the help of Allah, and let him not feel helpless to achieve any part of it. At this time, he will achieve the desired result, and he will win by getting what he hoped for. So you now apply this hadith to knowledge. احرص على ما ينفعك. Be keen for this knowledge that will benefit you. واستعن بالله. Ask Allah to help you to get it. وقل رب زدني علما. Say, my Lord, increase me in knowledge. وَلَا تَعْجِزْ. Never ever feel you will be defeated. Never feel helpless. Never feel this knowledge is for other people, not for me. Maybe the reason you're not getting this knowledge is because you are saying, I can't get it. It's not possible for me. This knowledge is too much. It's great scholars. I can't be a great person of knowledge. I can only just be a regular Muslim. So maybe that's the reason why you're not getting it. Don't feel helpless. Al-Junayd, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, ما طلب أحد شيئا بجد وصدق إلا ناله فإن لم ينله كله نال بعضه. He said, nobody seeks something with dedication and truthfulness except he will achieve it. Even if he doesn't achieve all of it, he will achieve some of it. And the Shaykh quoted a line of poetry, الجد بالجد والحرمان بالكسل فانصب تصب عن قريب غاية الأمل. Achievement comes from hard work and failure comes from laziness. Exert yourself and you will soon achieve the goal of your dreams. So focus your attention and wake up from heedlessness, because if a person is blessed with high aspirations, doors of all kinds of good will be open for him and many moments of happiness will race towards him. Didn't the Prophet ﷺ say, إِذَا سَأَلْتُمُ اللَّهُ الْجَنَّةَ فَسَأَلُوهُ الْفِرْدَوْسِ. If you ask Allah for Jannah, ask Him for Al-Firdaus. Why are you asking to be the last guy in Jannah? Oh Allah, make me the last person to go to Jannah. Oh Allah, just give me any place in Jannah. Oh Allah, anything at all in Jannah. That's not how we're taught to be. We're taught to strive for the highest of Jannah. High aspirations. Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, if the star of aspiration rises in the darkness of the night of idleness, and this is combined with the moon of dedication, the earth will be lit up with the light of its Lord. However, if a person's attention is attached and abandoned for it, beautiful sleep and journey through the night. And if you love your sleep, you love your food, you love your drink, you love your creature comforts, funny reality is, you can get knowledge. The book tells you, we're not going to say you get no knowledge, but you're not going to get that portion of knowledge that you want. You're not going to get that portion of knowledge that you want if you are not willing to give up your creature comforts, if you're not willing to give up money, if you're not willing to give up comfort, if you're not willing to give up sleep, if you're not willing to give up your home, the place where you live and travel, then you're only going to get a little bit of knowledge. And then you're going to say at the end of your life, why is it that I only got a little bit? What were you willing to sacrifice? How much were you willing to give up to get that knowledge? The Shaykh, he said, and from that which raises your aspirations and causes you to rise is to take a lesson from the condition of those who've gone before. Underline that line. Take a lesson from the condition of those who've gone before. In other words, read the biographies of the great scholars of the past, and this will give you inspiration to achieve more. And know the aspirations of these people of the past. Abu Abdullah Ahmad ibn Hanbal, during his childhood, rahimahullah ta'ala, might well have wanted to leave before Fajr to go to the circles of the scholars, but his mother would hold on to his clothing out of compassion for him until the adhan would be given or the morning would come. And Al-Khatib read, it should say read, Al-Khatib read all of Sahih al-Bukhari to Ismail al-Hayri in 3 sittings, 2 of which were in the night, from Maghrib until the break of dawn. Abdurrahman. Al-Dhahabi said in Tariq al-Islam, and this is something I do not know of anyone in our time who would be able to do it. Then the Shaykh said, may Allah have mercy on Abu Abdullah. If he were to see the attitude of the people of this time, what would he say? Wallah, it's so true. Khwani, we sit, we feel like we're struggling. We're sitting and we're struggling to do 1 hour sitting, 2 hours sitting. Can we have more breaks? Can we have more? Can we have some extra? And don't make it too hard. Can you do a summary of the book? Don't read the whole thing. People used to sit all of that time. And this was not only once. My brothers, not one time. This is over and over and over again. These people are sitting over and over and over and over again to learn these books from them, from Maghrib until Fajr, and then one night, and then the next night. He said, I've seen in some of the written collections in one of the private libraries of Najd, something attributed to Abdurrahman ibn Hassan al-Sheikh, and who's the grandson of Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, the author of Fath al-Majid, that he said, exert yourself in seeking knowledge and embark on this morning and evening. Continue to ask questions and may you be guided one who investigates. For disgrace in my eyes is that a person be ignorant. So be a person whose feet are firmly on the ground and whose crown is his aspirations towering above the stars. So I want you to underline that point. Your feet are on the ground and your aspirations are in the stars. What does it mean your feet are on the ground? Humility, humbleness, not thinking big of yourself, not thinking yourself to be something you're not. But your dreams are in the stars. And do not be from those who are young in body but feeble in their aspirations. Because indeed the aspirations of a truthful person never grow old. Wallah, I feel this from a lot of young people today. Body, young, strong, healthy person. Maybe goes to the gym every day, maybe twice a day. Like when you ask him, Akhi, what do you want to achieve in your life? Wallah, it's like an old man, like a broken old man. Listen to what Abu al-Wafa ibn Aqil, died 513 after the Hijrah, one of the scholars of Hanbali fiqh. He recited this poetry in his 80s. He said, ما شاب عزمي ولا حزمي ولا خلقي ولا ولائي ولا ديني ولا كرمي وإنما اعتاض شعري غير صبغته والشيب. He said, والشيب في الشعر والشيب في الشعر غير الشيب في الهمم. He said, my determination has not grown old, nor has my resolution, nor my manners, nor my allegiance, nor my religion, nor my generosity. I'm not old in any of those things. In those things, I'm a young guy. Only my hair has changed when it's not dyed. And grayness in the hair is not like growing old in ambition. You could have someone with gray hair, and this person has the ambition of a young 17-year-old guy. The world is ahead of him, and he's 80. And you can have a young 17, 18-year-old guy, the whole life in front of him, bi'idhnillah. Yet, wallahi, he's like a 90-year-old, 80, 90-year-old man, just waiting for the moment when he's going to pass out of this world. المعقد الرابع صرف الهمة فيه إلى علم القرآن والسنة. The fourth principle, focusing your attention on the knowledge of the Qur'an and the Sunnah. So number one is purifying the vessel, which is the heart. Number two is sincere intention. Number three is focusing your attention. Number four is focusing your attention on the Qur'an and the Sunnah. So this is all about making the Qur'an and the Sunnah your ultimate goal. Too many of us don't do this. Wallahi, it's almost a forgotten thing among many people, where people are happy for their goal to be, for example, to finish a particular book of a scholar, or to be really good in a certain madhab in fiqh. Like the goal of a Muslim should be what? The Qur'an and the Sunnah. And you're not satisfied until you're taking that knowledge from the Qur'an and the Sunnah. He said every beneficial kind of knowledge goes back to the speech of Allah and the speech of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. all other kinds of knowledge are either there to serve those two, so you take enough of them to provide that service, or alien to them, so it will not harm to be ignorant of them. So he said there are only two types of knowledge: the Qur'an, the Sunnah. Everything else is either a servant of the Qur'an and Sunnah or not connected to the Qur'an and Sunnah. So if it is a servant of the Qur'an and Sunnah, take enough of it that you get to the Qur'an and Sunnah through it. And if it's not connected to Qur'an and Sunnah, it doesn't hurt you to be ignorant of it. It might be beneficial, for example, medicine or something like that. It could be beneficial in itself, like it will not hurt you in your akhirah if you're ignorant of it. What will hurt you in your akhirah is to be ignorant of the Qur'an and Sunnah. And you need the knowledge that serves the Qur'an and the Sunnah. So for example, the Arabic language. The Arabic language serves the Qur'an and the Sunnah. Is it possible a person would lose sight of that and actually become so engaged in the Arabic language and its poetry and its benefits that they actually lose sight of the goal? And they start studying it just for the sake of it, and they memorize and they memorize and they study and they read and they examine books of literature and poetry, but they actually forget where they're actually meant to be going. Does that make sense? Yeah, it happens a lot. Happens a lot. The science, like say for example, the science of usul al-fiqh, for example, and the person is reading in it and becomes expert in it, and like sometimes a person can become so expert in something they actually lose the goal, which is that this science, I'm learning it to get to the Qur'an and the Sunnah. So this, my dear brothers, there's two things you have to bear in mind here in summary. The first one is that Qur'an and Sunnah comes first, always. And the second thing is you never lose sight of trying to get there. And from this, one of the greatest examples of the misunderstanding in this is the issue of a tamadhub, the issue of taking a madhab. There's nothing wrong with taking a madhab, as long as what? What's the greatest condition of taking a madhab? That your goal is the Qur'an and the Sunnah. There's no condition greater than that, that your goal in it is to reach the Qur'an and Sunnah. Like, and if your goal is just to reach, to be expert in what Ash-Shafi'i said and what An-Nawawi said, rahimahumullah ta'ala, that itself is not the goal. So you don't lose sight of the wood for the trees yet. Instead, your goal is the Qur'an and Sunnah. I'm learning this to get to the Qur'an and Sunnah. I'm learning it because it will facilitate for me the Qur'an and the Sunnah. I'm not learning it for the sake of it. I'm learning it as a ladder to step up to the Qur'an and the Sunnah. That's the goal. To the Qur'an and Sunnah, all knowledge returns. And it was these two forms of knowledge that the Prophet ﷺ was commanded to adhere to, as Allah Azza wa Jalla said, فَاسْتَمْسِكْ بِالَّذِي أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ إِنَّكَ عَلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Adhere to that which has been revealed to you. Indeed, you are on a straight path. Was anything revealed to Abu al-Qasim sallallahu alayhi wasallam other than the Qur'an and the Sunnah? Whoever makes his knowledge the Qur'an and the Sunnah is a follower, not an innovator, and will gain the most abundant of knowledge. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu said, "Man arada al-ilma falyusawwir al-Qur'an, فإن فيه علم الأولين والآخرين." Whoever wants knowledge, let him deeply examine the Qur'an, for it contains the knowledge of the early and the latter people. Masruq ibn al-Ajda' rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, ما نسأل أصحاب محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم عن شيء إلا علمه في القرآن إلا أن علمنا, he said, يخسر عنه, he said, rahimahullah ta'ala, We never asked the companions of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam about anything except that the knowledge of it was found in the Qur'an, but our knowledge of it was deficient. Meaning we asked the question and they brought us an ayah from the Qur'an, but we didn't understand that ayah applied to that particular question. And it's attributed to Ibn Abbas that he used to recite the following lines of poetry, radiyallahu anhuma, جميع العلم في القرآن لكن تقاصر عنه أفهام الرجال. All knowledge is found in the Qur'an, however men fell short in understanding it. And Iyad al-Yahsubi, Al-Qadi Iyad, rahimahullah ta'ala, said in his book Al-Ilma', knowledge is found in two sources. None transgresses them, except the one misguided from the clear road. Knowledge of the book and knowledge of the narrations which are attributed from a follower, from a companion. There's only two types of knowledge, he says. Knowledge of the Qur'an and knowledge of the narrations that came from the tabi'een, from the Sahaba, radiyallahu anhum, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The highest aspiration in seeking knowledge, as Ibn al-Qayyim said in his book Al-Fawaid, is seeking knowledge of the Qur'an and the Sunnah and understanding it the way that Allah and His Messenger intended, and knowledge of the limits which have been sent down. If we take this statement of Ibn al-Qayyim, seeking knowledge of the book and the Sunnah, understanding it the way that Allah and His Messenger intended, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what do we call the knowledge of understanding what Allah intended by His speech? We call it tafsir, generally speaking. There's other knowledges, other types of knowledge, but generally speaking, we can call that tafsir. And what do we call knowledge of what the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam intended by his speech? We call it the knowledge of hadith in terms of, we call it diraya, the knowledge from the texts of the hadith, as opposed to the science of hadith. And the knowledge, we can call it fiqh sunnah if you want to call it that. The fiqh taken out of the sunnah. Knowledge of the limits which have been sent down come in two areas. The limits in terms of belief come into the science of aqeedah, and the limits in terms of the way you practice in your day-to-day life is found in the science of fiqh. Therefore, you can say that there are four primary types of knowledge in Islam. That is tafsir and hadith, or you can call it the fiqh of the sunnah, and aqeedah and fiqh, al-furu' al-fiqhiyah. These are the four primary sciences, because all of it comes back to that. Knowledge of the book and the sunnah, understanding it in the way that Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam intended, and knowledge of the limits that have been sent down. This was the knowledge of the early generations, may the mercy of Allah be upon them. And after them, there was a lot of speech about that which does not benefit. And that's no doubt true. From this is the science which came and was imported into this ummah. It was never a part of this ummah. It was never among the Sahaba or among the Tabi'een. It was imported from Greek philosophy and other places, and that is the science known as Ilm al-Kalam, the science of rhetoric and philosophy. This science is exactly as the Shaykh describes it. ثُمَّ كَثُرَ الْكَلَامِ بَعْدَهُمْ فِي مَا لَا يَنْفَعُ. After that, there was a lot of speech which doesn't benefit. And this science brings a lot of speech, but not a lot of benefit. Whereas knowledge among the early generations was more, and speech among the latter generations was more. If you want to learn more about this, you can go back to the book of Ibn Rajab, فضل علم السلف على علم الخلف, the virtue of the knowledge of the earlier people over the knowledge of the later people. Hammad ibn Zayd, rahimahullah ta'ala, said, I asked Ayyub al-Sakhtiyani, is knowledge today more, or was it more in the past? He said, الكلام اليوم أكثر والعلم فيما تقدم أكثر. There's more speech today, but there was more knowledge in the past. That's the truth. Today there is more speech. Today the libraries are much bigger. If you looked at the library that was available to someone like, for example, Al-Imam Malik, the library was very small. Today the library is very big. But the knowledge at that time was huge, and the knowledge today is very small. المعقد الخامس سلوك الجادة الموصلة إليه. The fifth principle, taking the proper path which will lead to it. Remind ourselves quickly, purifying the vessel, followed by ikhlas and niyyah, sincerity and intention, followed by focusing all your attention on it, followed by making your attention upon the Qur'an and the Sunnah. And now we came to taking the proper path. Al-Jadda is the proper path to something. And this, my brothers and sisters, is from the most important chapters of the book. All of the book is important. Like, and this is very important. So I want you to give it some concentration. Everything which is sought after has a path which takes you to it. Whoever takes the proper path for the thing that he is seeking, it will bring him to it. And whoever takes another path will not be successful in getting it. Knowledge has a path. Underline those words. Ikhwani, do you think that the scholars disappeared into a cave and turned up after 10 years or 20 years as scholars, and we don't know what they did in the cave? They took a path. Their footsteps are obvious. If you want to take it, you can step in their steps. The steps are there for everybody to see. There is a clear path to seeking knowledge. It's not unknown. It's not secret. It's not hidden. There's a very clear, established path to seeking knowledge. Whoever takes the wrong one will be misguided and will not achieve his target, and perhaps will get very little benefit for a great amount of effort. Underline that sentence. Because that is the situation many of us feel. Well, I'm giving my hours and hours for talab al-ilm. I'm really trying really hard. I'm studying. I study like 10, 20, 30 hours a week, 50 hours I'm studying, but I just don't feel. I went to the Islamic universities. I sat with the scholars, but I still don't feel like I got anywhere. You feel like you made a lot of effort, but you didn't get the outcome that you wanted. That's because you didn't take the path that was laid out for you. Az-Zarnuji, rahimahullah ta'ala, said in his book Ta'aleem al-Muta'allim, everyone who takes the wrong path will be misguided and will not achieve his objective, whether it is a little or a lot. Yani either he'll be a little bit short or he'll be way short. Does that make sense? Either he's going to miss it a bit, because he could take the wrong path and nearly get there, but he could take the wrong path and just end up on completely the wrong place. Ibn al-Qayyim said in his Fawaid, ignorance of the path, its hardship and the objective necessitates a great deal of exertion for very little benefit. And now we come to one of the most important lines of poetry in the book. Please circle it and memorize it. Muhammad Murtada ibn Muhammad al-Zabidi, the author of Taj al-Arus, described this path in a way that is both comprehensive and exclusive in a poem of his called Alfiyat al-Sanad, in which he said, فَمَا حَوَى الْغَايَةَ فِي أَلْفِ سَنَةٍ شَخْصٌ فَخُذْ مِنْ كُلِّ فَنٍّ أَحْسَنَهُ بِحِفْظِ مَتْنٍ جَامِعٍ لِلْرَاجِحِ تأخذه على مفيد ناصح. He said, the end of seeking knowledge cannot be attained in 1,000 years by a person. So take from every science the best of it. By memorizing a text which gathers together that which is superior, taking it from one who benefits and sincerely advises. These 2 lines of poetry, that's all it is, 2 lines. These 2 lines of poetry gather together a perfect description of the roadmap to seeking knowledge in terms of the steps you have to take and what you have to do. Number one, you cannot reach the end of this path even if you live for 1,000 years. So you are going to have to look for a shortcut. So this first part about the 1,000 years, write on the side a little note. That means you're going to have to find an efficient way of doing it, because you can't just take everything. You cannot take everything. Does that make sense? Go to the library of the masjid and start reading every book. And let me know when you finish. Just the library of the masjid. I'm not talking about the British library or the big Maktaba of the Jamia Islamiyya, the big Islamic university library, or these big libraries that exist. I'm just talking about the local library, just here. See how many books you finish. You need to be very, very, very selective and efficient. So some people, the reason they go wrong is because they go around the houses. There's a path that just goes there, quick. But instead of taking the quick path, they go here and there and over there, then they come back, and they go again, and they go back again, and they're like, I don't know why I haven't arrived yet. Take the shortest, reliable path. How do you do it? فَخُذْ مِنْ كُلِّ فَنٍ أَحْسَنَ. Take the best of every science. What does it mean, the best of every science? First of all, it means to divide Islamic study into sciences. So for example, we talked about the 4 primary sciences. What did we say they are quickly? Tafsir and hadith, as in dirayatan, yani knowledge of the text of the hadith, not the chains of the hadith, yeah? Aqidah and furu' fiqhiyya, yani the fiqh of the day-to-day actions. From there are many other sciences that support them. The Arabic language, seerah, history. There is the science of usul al-fiqh, mustalah al-hadith. There are, we could go 20, 25, 30. We could break it into separate sciences. If you want to have a look at my particular breakdown, you can just Google AMAU prospectus. AMAU prospectus, that's me and Ustadh Abdul Rahman, what we worked on just to put together our idea of how to break it down. But you can just download it. You don't have to be a subscriber or anything. You can just type in AMAU prospectus and just download it. You can just see how it's divided. We have at the moment 7 pathways. Each pathway, some of them have 10 different types of knowledge in them. And each one of them has its own books. But the reason you break down knowledge into sciences is to make sure you cover everything. Otherwise, what happens is you cover part of it and you miss part of it. Does that make sense? Like, for example, you keep saying, I've studied so many years. Okay, what have you studied? Well, I've been studying from the Shaykh. Okay, what has Shaykh taught you? Aqidah, Aqidah, Aqidah. MashaAllah, beautiful. Don't get me wrong, I will study Aqidah all day and every day, bi'iznillahi ta'ala, until the day that I die. I will love it. Like, that's what you've been studying. Aqidah, 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 Aqidah. Amazing. Like, you're asking yourself, why do I not feel like I have the whole package? Because you've only been studying 1 knowledge out of 4 of the primary. And if we talk about all the other types of knowledge, 1 out of maybe 30 or 40 types of knowledge. So you've done good, but there's more to go. Break Islam down into sciences. This is why, Ikhwani, when you watch YouTube, you don't become a scholar no matter how many videos you watch. Why? Because you're not breaking it down into sciences that you're studying step by step. You're watching random stuff. This will not get you knowledge. You need to break it down into subjects. Subject number 1, subject number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 10, number 20, number 25. And what do you take from it? Do you take the whole subject? You take the best of it. فَخُذْ مِنْ كُلِّ فَنٍ أَحْسَنَ. Take the best. You can't take everything, Ikhwani. You can't take every single thing. You can only just take the best. So you need people of knowledge to say to you, you know, this book is good, but this one is better. Do you know, on this topic alone, the topic of adab talib al-ilm, the etiquettes of seeking knowledge, I have an entire bookshelf, maybe the size of this table. And even then, I probably haven't even bought a quarter of the books on the topic. Does it make sense to me to say to you, Akhi, before you start seeking knowledge, you need to read this whole bookshelf? Or am I going to say to you, listen, Ta'zeem al-ilm, after that, take Hilya Talib al-ilm, after that, take quick. This one, you'll get the best. Does that make sense? Someone recommends to you the best to take from each science. Again, the AMAU prospectus is my and Ustadh Abdul Rahman, our effort to kind of put for you a plan of what we think is the best in every science, but it is open to discussion and it's open to variation, and there's no harm in that, inshallah ta'ala. بِحِفْظِ مَتْنٍ جَامِعٍ لِلرَّاجِحِ. You are now going to memorize a text. So what are you learning in each science? Are you just reading books? I read a book about Aqidah, read a book about fiqh, read a book about seerah, read a book about tafsir. No. You're studying mutun. Ikhwani, mutun are different from books. A matan is a text that has been placed in front of you with the specific goal of giving you what you need in that science. This is a text, a matan. It's there in front of you for you to get this, for the person who wrote it to say, this is the specific knowledge which you need in this particular field. And no doubt that matan will be on different levels. Many of the scholars divide it into three. It could be divided into more. If we divide into three, we say an easy matan, an easy text, a medium level, an intermediate matan, and a advanced level matan. Is a book that's 18 volumes a matan? It's not, right? If it's 18 volumes long, it's not really a text. It's a book, you read it. Like in a text, we're talking about something that you truly, and it's summarized for you, it brings for you what you need. Some people call it a primer. That also is a good word. Like as though someone has just diluted and just brought for you, or the opposite of diluted, and he concentrated for you. I was thinking of another word. What was the word I was thinking of? Begins with a D. No. What do you call it? Distilled. Has distilled for you. Has distilled for you all of that knowledge into a text at a certain level. Generally, what are you going to do with that text? You're going to make hifz of it. And there are two types of hifz. You can write it down. There is word for word hifz, and there is what we might call shibhu hifz, any approximate memorization, or let's say familiarity, if you want to call it that. So when we're talking about word for word hifz, like the Qur'an and the hadith and poetry, we don't accept anything except, word for word. We don't accept you to just, kind of like vaguely know it. And as the Prophet said something about niyyah and rewards. We don't accept that, right? There was something like that, niyyah, rewards, something about niyyah, hijrah, reward. Yeah, there was something along those lines. We don't accept it like that. We accept it word for word. And there are other things, and included in that is poetry, and included in that are the smaller mutun, the smaller texts that are possible to memorize. But what do you do if you have a text that's too big? What about if I said to you, you have to study Ibn Kathir? This is now all your tafsir, you're going to bring it into tafsir Ibn Kathir. Tafsir Ibn Kathir is like that big. How are you going to memorize it? You're not going to memorize it, but you're going to become so familiar with it that you have recall of what he said. You remember what he said. So you read it over and over again. Shaykh bin Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, from the things he used to say is there's two books that I never stop reading. Fath al-Bari and Tafsir Ibn Kathir. The explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari by Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar, rahimahullah ta'ala, and Tafsir Ibn Kathir. I finish it, I start again. 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 You become very familiar with it. Become very familiar with it. Also, I think, give another benefit from Shaykh bin Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala. Have you noticed that Shaykh bin Baz, in his fatwa, heavily bases how he presents the answer upon very simple texts like Bulugh al-Maram. And the Shaykh, subhanAllah, many times, and it's a very simple text. Bulugh al-Maram is not a big text. It's just one volume, just a one-volume book. It's like the Shaykh always brings you back to a hadith from, for example, a hadith from Bulugh al-Maram, something like that, a commentary from Fath al-Bari, a quote from Ibn Kathir. It's like you're bringing your knowledge back to those simple texts that you memorized when you were much younger, and in the beginning of your studies, you memorized some simple texts. They're like keys. They don't contain everything, but they contain the keys that remind you of what you need for the rest of the text. You studied tafsir from books that are maybe altogether, you've read 80 volumes on tafsir, 100 volumes, 150 volumes of tafsir. Altogether, for me personally, the only thing I tend to really remember is maybe Al-Misbah al-Munir, the summary of Ibn Kathir. That's like what kind of sticks in my head, and everything else, I just remember from that, like that's a branch to that, and that goes to that, and that's connected to that, and don't forget about this. And do you see how it is? It's like a key that opens the doors to the other types of knowledge that you have. So you try to memorize, and your teacher will tell you what to memorize. Because again, what will happen if you try to memorize everything? You're not going to get it, right? You're going to end up saying, I'm still memorizing the isnad for the first hadith in Sahih Bukhari. You're still memorizing the chain of narration. My friend has finished Bukhari. I'm still memorizing the chain of narration for the first hadith. Let your teacher advise you what to memorize and what not to memorize. And again, if you guys want my recommendation, it's not really mine, Ustadh Abdul Rahman and my recommendation, you can go to AMAU Prospectus and there's a section on what to memorize. In fact, we divided it into two types of student. The advanced memorizer and the one who struggles a little bit with memory. And we gave two different pathways for them. For example, the one who, in Mustalah al-Hadith, for example, the one who is struggling a bit, you just memorize a little bit, maybe memorize the poem of Nukhbatul Fikr. The one who's a bit advanced, Alfiyat al-Iraqi. Do you see, we've got two pathways. And if we see that you're struggling with hifz, trust me, I'm with you. And you're struggling with hifz, I'm sitting with you. Like, if you are struggling with hifz, we're going to give you a program that will give you good hifz, but it will not be as much as someone who is like a sponge. We're going to give them more. Ideally, it would be nice to have memorized roughly 1,000 lines of poetry in every sub-science of Islam. The major ones, not every single one. But it would be nice to have said that in all of the major sciences of Islam, you memorized 1,000 lines of poetry. I was trying to think, 1,000 lines of poetry, roughly, how is that equivalent to, if we look at about memorizing the Qur'an? Maybe you would say it's 15 lines on a page. So I don't know, I would be thinking like, what is that? Is that about 65 odd lines? So roughly, I would say, for example, the example of Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-Imran. That amount is roughly, very roughly, the length of like 1,000-line poem. Is about, sort of similar amount of time it would take you. Maybe, I'm just approximating, just something you could kind of like hold on to. So if I take 6 of the major sciences of Islam and tell you to memorize 1,000 lines in each one, and you see where we're going with this. Like it's almost going to be like memorizing the same quantity of memorizing the Qur'an again. Like that's doable, right? That's not like impossible. That's doable. To memorize maybe 1,000 lines in 6, 7, 8 different sciences of Islam, you will be very good. But if you don't have that, and I don't claim to have it in all of the sciences of Islam, some are better than others, then for sure I would say, no problem, take 100 lines. If you don't like poetry, memorize prose. 100 lines in every science, wallah, you'll be better than 99% of the people around you, inshallah ta'ala, in terms of your recall of knowledge. Now this method you memorize, what should its feature be? It should be jami'in lirrajihi. It should gather that which is superior. Now, by this, I'm going to give you 2 points of what this means. Number one, it should be a text which is mu'tamad, a text which is a standard in the field. There are many texts that personally, I think that there are better things that are available. For example, you memorize a text, there are better things that are available than that text. But honestly, that text is a standard. Anywhere you go in the world, you'll find it being taught, explained. You'll find easy to get books, easy to find lectures on YouTube. You can find 10 sheikhs who've explained the lecture. You can find in the masjid it's being taught. If not here, then in the masjid across the road. If not there, then in another city. Then they're easy to study because they are a standard in the field. For example, if I talk about hadith, ahadith al-ahkam, the hadith of ahkam, of the halal and haram, personally, we studied al-Muharrar by Ibn Abdul Hadi. And that's an amazing book. But really, if I was teaching, I would rather teach Bulugh al-Maram, because Bulugh al-Maram has a wider acceptance generally in the world. Do you understand what I mean by that? Like, I can go to any country in the world, I'll find someone to teach me Bulugh al-Maram. But al-Muharrar, maybe that is some of the scholars of hadith teach it here and there. You can find a sharh here, and one came out recently. You know, it's not easy. Bulugh al-Maram, you can fill your bookshelf with explanations of it. And you'll find them in the local shop that sells books as well. There's a value to studying a text which is a standard. And this is where some of the brothers might ask about us studying texts that came from, for example, some of the people of innovation. If that text has become a standard in the field and the scholars deem it to be worthy of study and with relatively minimal issues in it, yeah, that text might become a standard. That text might become a standard. For example, Al-Waraqat, as your first book that you study in Usul al-Fiqh. By Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni, rahimahullah ta'ala, he was Ash'ari, and he had serious and severe mistakes in his aqeedah. Can a person realizes this text has acceptance for it? People teach it all over the world. People teach it, and those who are upon his view and those who are opposed to his view teach it. And it's a book that doesn't have a huge amount of that in it, and you're not going to read it and become extremely confused and lost. Then your teacher is going to take you through it and point out some of the things in it. But because that text is a standard, the explanations, little ones, big ones, summaries, poetry, everything you can find for it. You could find a book that was written by someone min Ahl Sunnah that covers the same thing, but it isn't such a standard. So try for these texts to stick to that which is considered a standard, especially in the region that you're in. The second thing that you can take from Jami' al-Rajihi is it is a book which is mostly correct, in the sense that it doesn't have lots of mistakes in it or lots of things in it that go away from the norms. I'll give you an example. Personally, this is why I don't consider Al-Manzuma Al-Bayquniyya to be a text in Ilm al-Hadith. We teach it as a introduction or something, but it's not a good text because it's not Jami' al-Rajihi. Many times Al-Bayquni has his own terminology that he uses that goes against the standard that the later scholars took, people after him took. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing to blame in him with it, but it makes it not so useful for us because you're learning something and saying, yeah, but that's not right. And then you're learning that, but that's not right. Then you learn the definition of this, but Ikhwani, just bear in mind that's not right. Then you learn the definition of that one, but just keep in mind that's not right. that is not useful for you to study as a core text. It might be okay for an introduction and it's a nice way to spend a weekend and everything, but it's not really a core text, because ultimately it's got too many things in it that go against what is considered to be the norms and the standards. He advises. What does this mean? Ikhwani, this means two things. It means that the person is qualified. Mufid, yufiduka, they will benefit you because they're qualified to do it. There's no point taking it from someone who's not qualified to do it. Now here you might say, hold on a second, but we study all the time from, you know, the graduates and the du'at. They're not from these great scholars of our time and everything. Like, and what do you want from your teacher who is less than that? Is someone who can reliably convey the meanings taken from the senior scholars and the people of knowledge and give them to you in a way you can understand. But you want someone who's qualified to teach you that text, whether they're a great scholar or less than that, but you want them to be qualified to teach you that text. And you want them to be nasih, sincere for you. And that means the aspect of tarbiyah, of care, of looking at what you need. Ikhwani, I can sit in front of you and teach you any book. I can sit in front of you and teach you a really complicated book or a really easy book. But I have to look at the brothers and sisters in front of us and make a judgment about what's good for you, not what's good for me. And this is where you sometimes see some of the students and you look at them teaching a book and you think, to be honest, Habibi, you're teaching that book because it's good for you, not because it's good for your students. That has its place. But do you see what I mean about you need somebody who cares for you, cares about you, really wants you to grow. So they look at you and they give you a personalized advice as best they can. I can't give a personal advice to everybody in the room, but I look and I adjust and maintain, even the way I explain the book. Am I zooming through? Do I go slow? Do I go fast? Do I stop? Do I start? You got to look at the person to understand that this is what is going to truly benefit them and that you really want good for that person. The road of knowledge and its middle path is built upon two things. Whoever takes them both will be one who reveres knowledge because he's seeking from the way in which it's possible to reach. Firstly, to memorize a text which gathers together that which is superior. Memorization is a must. And whoever thinks he can gain knowledge without memorization is seeking something unattainable. That which is memorized and relied upon is a text which gathers together that which is superior, meaning a text which is relied upon by the people of the science. A student who memorizes something obscure in a science and who leaves that which is well known will not benefit. Like the person who memorizes Alfiyatu al-Athari in the science of Nahu and leaves behind the Alfiyah of Ibn Malik. Secondly, to take that text from one who benefits and sincerely advises. So you flee to a sheikh from whom you can understand its meanings and has two attributes. Number one, that he benefits, that means he's qualified in knowledge. So he's known as one who sought knowledge and took it from others. How many people appear on YouTube today? And we ask the question, where did you learn? Okay, I don't want you to graduate from a university. Nobody cares about graduating from universities. It's not about that. Who did you take your knowledge from? And how long did you study with them till you got that knowledge that you became comfortable in it and qualified in it? And many people turn up, they got their knowledge itself from YouTube, let alone from any people of knowledge. The basis of this is reported by Abu Dawood in his Sunan, saying that Zuhair ibn Harb and Uthman ibn Abi Shayba narrated to me, saying Jarir narrated to us from Al-A'mash, from Abdullah ibn Abdullah, from Sa'id ibn Jubair, from Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Tasma'un, وَيُسْمَعُ مِنْكُمْ وَيُسْمَعُ مِمَّنْ يَسْمَعُ مِنْكُمْ وَإِسْنَادُهُ قَوِي. Its chain is strong. He said, you will hear, and others will hear from you, and others will hear from those who heard from you. Knowledge is passed down like that. A lot of us think only hadith is passed down like that, but it's not true. It's not just hadith that's passed down like that. All of Islamic knowledge is passed down like that. Aqeedah, hadith, whatever it is, it's passed down by the Prophet ﷺ giving it to the Sahaba giving it to the Tabi'een giving it to the generation after, and so on and so forth. And some scholars come together and organize it and sort it and you know, add points here and take things away and what have you. But ultimately, it's coming from a solid basis of hearing from someone who hears from someone who hears from someone from the Prophet ﷺ. And the attribute of sincere advice. This comprises two meanings: the suitability of the Shaykh as an example to be followed, and for the student to be guided by his guidance, conduct, and manners. Very important. You have to learn from a teacher that you feel comfortable to learn from their manners and their behavior, not just from their knowledge. And his knowledge of the methods of teaching. So he's proficient in teaching students, and he knows what is suitable for them and what will harm them in accordance with the educational kind of nurturing that is Shatibi mentioned in his book Al-Muwafaqat. Al-Ma'qidu Sadis. رعاية فنونه في الأخذ وتقديم الأهم فالمهم. The sixth principle. Taking into account the different sciences when acquiring knowledge and giving precedence to them in order of importance. Can we remember the five that came before? What were the five that we learned? Don't look at the page. And that's why we said about memorization. The Shaykh said without memorization, it's not going to benefit you. Just, I'm talking bil ma'na, riwayah bil ma'na. And if it's allowed in hadith, it's allowed in this, inshallah. The first one, purifying the vessel, okay, which is the heart. The second one is the sincerity of intention. The third one is focusing all your attention. The fourth one is focusing on the Qur'an and the Sunnah. The fifth one is taking the proper path. And the sixth one, the different sciences and giving precedence to them. Because, Ikhwani, if we have 20 or 30 different sub-sciences, is it possible we can give equal importance to them all? Do we think that Aqeedah and Balagha both is equally important? Do we think that the science of Aqeedah, what you believe about Allah Azza wa Jal, what defines you as a Muslim, is the same as learning eloquence in the Arabic language? It's not the same. So you have to give precedence to the certain types of knowledge. But ultimately, you want to get all of those sciences. My brothers, we have a big problem today. And that big problem is we are content with what I call personally extreme takhassus, extreme specialization. And this is what the Shaykh is warning against here. Extreme specialization. What do I mean by that? I'll tell you. Go to the Islamic University of Medina. Graduate from Arabic language. So far, so good, right? You now know the Arabic language. And then you start with a highly specialized program in hadith. Do you know what we covered in Kulliyat al-Hadith, in Usul al-Fiqh, in the science of Usul al-Fiqh, was basically, wallahi, I wouldn't have covered it with my students in a weekend. Honestly, if I'm being brutally honest with you, it's something I might cover in a week-long dawrah or something like that. Maybe not a weekend. A week-long dawrah. Does it make sense that you're supposed to be graduating from a university, you're supposed to be going back and teaching people, and you have a critical science of Islam that you haven't even really opened the introduction for. Extreme specialization. Now, I don't blame the universities. They have problems with timetabling and all of that. I understand that. But I blame the student for not wanting to level that knowledge out. Not saying, I'm weak in Arabic literature. I'm weak in mustalah al-hadith. I need to improve in my knowledge of tafsir. I don't know as much about the seerah as I should. And bringing all of these knowledge together to a certain standard. Are you going to become an expert in all of them? Most likely not. Some scholars did become experts in many sciences, like Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala. That's why he gets the title Shaykh al-Islam, for being an expert in lots of different sciences. However, most people will get expertise in one or two or three, maybe, depending on what Allah makes easy for you. But ultimately, what we want you to do is to have a goal to be proficient in all of them. I didn't say expert. I said proficient in all of them. To have a decent understanding of all of them. That is really, really important. The Shaykh, he said, Hafidhahullah ta'ala, a pleasant image becomes even more pleasant when the eye has the pleasure of looking at every part of it. However, some of its beauty is lost by the one looking at it, depending on how much of it is concealed from him. Knowledge is like this. Whoever takes into account the different sciences when acquiring it and gains a share of each science, his skill in knowledge becomes complete. Why? Because Islam is a series of interconnected sciences. It's not Aqeedah by itself, and fiqh by itself, and usul by itself, and mustalah by itself. It is all together. It's all combined. Whenever you're missing one, you have one pillar of your bridge that is not there. Ultimately, maybe you can just about use it, but it's not what you're supposed to have. The strength and the beauty of it comes from having all of these sciences interconnected. So the person dips into this one, takes from this one, benefits from this one, applies this to this, and here, there. All of them together. However, expertise is something which comes later on, and maybe in one area or two areas, according to what Allah makes easy for the person. Ibn al-Jawzi, rahimahullah ta'ala, said in Sayd al-Khatir, which is translated into English, he said, Jam'ul ulumi mamduh. Gathering different types of knowledge is something praiseworthy. Take from every science and do not be ignorant of it, for the free person is one who looks into the secrets of the different sciences. The Shaykh, he said, Hafidhullah ta'ala, the Shaykh of our Shuyukh, Muhammad ibn Mani', rahimahullah ta'ala, said in Irshad al-Tullab, it is not befitting for a person of virtue to leave a kind of beneficial knowledge which will help him to understand the book and the sunnah. Underline that point. That will help him to understand the book and the sunnah. If it's not helping you to understand the book and the sunnah, it's not important. Like in what is helping you to understand the Qur'an and sunnah, if he knows that he has in himself the strength to learn it, underline that point. The only reason you should be leaving off a science is because you don't believe yourself to actually be capable at this moment in time of learning it. It is not right for him to dishonor the knowledge that he's ignorant of. That's very important. It's not allowed for you to speak badly. Okay, you're not an expert in this. You say, oh, this knowledge is la shay. Nothing. Nobody needs it. Leave it. Have you not heard people speaking badly of Aqeedah, which is perhaps the single most important piece of knowledge you can get? What to believe about Allah, and the person says, Aqeedah, la ilaha illallah. Any person knows this. We teach it to our kids. Yani Subyan al-Kuttab, the kids in the nursery, we teach them this. This is nothing. Who is a scholar of Aqeedah? What's he scholar of? La ilaha illallah. It's easy. We have heard people speak like this. I've seen videos of people speaking like this who claim to be people of knowledge, standing in front of the people and saying, this knowledge is 5 minutes, I Aqeedah, 5 minutes, I teach you, La ilaha illallah, khalas, go home. This person doesn't know Aqeedah if it slapped him in the face. Doesn't have a clue about what it is. He's jahil of what it is. But what he's doing is, he's blaming and criticizing something he doesn't know what it is. Don't do that. Don't detract from the one who's knowledgeable in it. This is a deficiency and a depravity. It's befitting for the intelligent person to speak with knowledge or be silent with courtesy. Underline that. Either speak with ilm or be quiet out of good manners, lest he fall within the statement who said, this is one of my favorite lines of poetry in the text. I put a star in it. I love this. أتاني أن سهلا ذم جهلا علوما ليس يعرفهن سهل علوما لو قراها ما قلاها ولكن الرضا بالجهل سهل. It's a very powerful line of poetry. He said, it reached me that Sahl censured out of ignorance sciences that Sahl didn't know. Sciences that if he knew them, he would not have detested them. But it's Sahl to be content with ignorance. The poet is playing on words here. Sahl means easy. So he said, it came to me that a man called Sahl used to criticize knowledge he doesn't know. And it's easy, and it's Sahl, to be ignorant or to be happy with your ignorance. It's Sahl. To be pleased with your own ignorance is easy. Taking into account the different sciences only benefits when depending upon two fundamental things. Number one, giving precedence to them in order of importance. Underline. According to that which a student is in need of, to carry out the duties of servitude. And why are you learning? My brother, my sister, why are you learning Islam? Are you not learning Islam to practice it? Should you not therefore put first the things you need to practice it properly? Imam Malik, rahimahullah ta'ala, Imam Dar al-Hijrah, he said about seeking knowledge, حَسَنٌ جَمِيلٌ وَلَكِنْ انظُرْ الَّذِي يَلْزَمُكَ مِنْ حِينَ تُصْبِحُ إِلَى حِينِ تُمْسِي فَالْزَمْهُ. He said, it's all well and good, but look at what you need to do from morning until evening and stick to learning that. And to begin with, Ikhwani, there's no point in we learning the finery of Arabic language if you don't know how to pray. Sahih. There's no point in learning a lesson on Arabic poetry if you don't know how to pray. And Abu Ubaidah, Ma'mar ibn Muthanna, he said, whoever busies himself with something unimportant will be harmed by that which is important. من شغل نفسه بغير المهم أضر بالمهم. Whoever makes himself busy with that which is, whoever busies himself with something unimportant will be harmed by that which is important. Give precedence to the most important, for knowledge is copious, and life is but a brief apparition or a guest who pays a short visit. Number two, that the intention at the beginning of seeking knowledge is to cover a summarized text in each science until the point that he has completed all of the beneficial types of knowledge. Then he looks at the kind of knowledge which agrees with his nature and that which he finds himself capable of. So two things here, agrees with nature and finds himself capable of, and he goes into depth in it, regardless of whether it is one science or more. So how does a person start? I want to cover one text in each basic science. So I want to cover one text in hadith, one text in fiqh, for example, one text in aqeedah, one text in seerah, and so on. And then maybe if it's got levels, like level 1, level 2, level 3, I finish that. Then I look at which of these sciences appeals to my nature and which of them have I got ability for. So there's two things. One is that I like it, I enjoy it, and the other one is I've got ability to do it, and it suits. Okay, inshallah, it's back on. We just had a moment where our live stream decided to go off. Inshallah, it's back on. How many sciences might you specialize in? You might specialize in one, you might specialize in more. As for reaching the pinnacle of every science and gaining proficiency in every one, this is only made easy for the odd person across the ages. For example, the likes of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, that they say that he achieved proficiency in many, many sciences. That's very rare. That's even among the scholars, it's very rare that someone is proficient in many, many sciences. After that, the student looks to what he can achieve one science at a time or multiple sciences at once. But one at a time is better for kids. I'm not sure why it's going off and on, but it is. If it goes off, don't worry, we'll post the video. We're still recording, and you know how live streams are. They go on, they go off, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So here, maybe, I don't know if it's just some, maybe tension in that. Let's just see if that's the problem. Let's just give that some, maybe extra relief. Let's see. Try that. So what did the Shaykh say? Very nuanced here. He said, in the beginning, you take every science, right? In the beginning, you're going to take Aqidah, Fiqh, Tafsir, Hadith, Usul, Mustalah, Qawa'id Fiqhiyya, Nahu, Sarf, all of that. You take everything. Level 1, finish. Level 2, finish. Maybe level 3, depending on if it's easy for you. Level 3, finish. Then what do? Then generally you take one science at a time. Generally after that you take, I'm going to go deep into Aqidah, what I can, okay. I'm going to go deep into Furu' Fiqhiyya, what I can, okay. And see what Allah makes it easy for you to do. Is it required to finish all the mutun to a high level? I don't think you can say it's required, but it's good for you to finish whatever you can. The more you do, remember this book is all relative. The more you do, the better you're going to be. And the less you do, the weaker you're going to be. He said among the anonymous lines of Mauritanian poetry is the following: if you want to learn a science, complete it. And as for others, before you finish the first one, stop. Prohibition has come for learning multiple sciences at once. For if two twins try to leave the womb together, they will never. No, it's still going off. Since that's going off, I'm going to do something so I don't get distracted by it. I'm going to do something. I'm just going to switch the camera. Yeah. On my side, it's not, so it's probably a delay. It's probably a delay where it stops working later on. So what I'm going to do, don't worry, I'm going to change the video over to I'm going to try to change it over to the front camera and try the audio here. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to make this work. Okay, good. I think we can do that. We're just on the backup camera now. So I don't know whether it's just got a loose wire or whether it's overheating, but I'm not going to worry about fixing it in the middle of a class. So we're just going to go with the backup version. No problem, inshallah. So the poetry says, if two twins try to come out together, are they ever going to come out? If the two twins are stuck trying to come out together, they're never going to come out. One twin has to come first and then the other twin has to come second. So you can't, generally, most people cannot become an expert in two things at once. As for the person who knows himself to have the ability to join between multiple sciences at once, he can do so, and his situation is considered an exception to the rule. So bear that in mind. The Shaykh is telling you, I'm quoting you this poetry, but this poetry, I'm not telling you is universal. I'm telling you there are exceptions to the rule. Some people can learn two sciences at once and be very proficient. But remember, in the beginning of your study, it's not about learning two sciences. You learn all the sciences little bit by little bit. one lesson Aqeedah, one lesson Fiqh, one lesson Usul, one lesson Mustalah, one lesson Nahu, one lesson Sarf. When you reach a certain level, then generally you look and see, can I take two at the same time or only one? From the things which are seen in opposition to this principle include reluctance to study different types of knowledge. That's number one. People don't want to study. I don't want to study Arabic grammar. Why would I want to study Arabic grammar? I want to study, these nice sciences, that famous sciences. Why do I want to study Arabic grammar for? Belittling some forms of knowledge, being busy with what doesn't benefit, and a penchant for oddities. Al-wala' bil-gharaib. Basically, you like to have weird things that other people don't have. Now, I want to stop and explain this. Imam Malik used to say the worst of knowledge is that which is odd, and the best of knowledge is that which is manifest, which the people have narrated. I'll give you an example. Someone has a YouTube channel where they share hadith with people, or stories, for example. Nobody wants to narrate the same stories, the stories of the Qur'an, the stories from the Sunnah, the stories from the reliable books like Bukhari and Muslim. What do they want to do instead? They want to narrate al-gharaib. They want to narrate these strange and unusual, weak hadith, fabricated hadith. Do you see what I mean? The person wants to narrate something weird. Why? Because people are going to be attracted towards them. Wow, I never heard that hadith before. Because the hadith is not real. That's why you never heard it before. People don't want to teach simple, easy to understand hadith. They want to teach al-gharaib, unusual, rare. I've got something nobody else has. And Imam Malik is warning you. He's saying, don't be someone who gets hooked on these odd things. Stick to what is well known. Does everyone understand what we mean by al-gharaib? And maybe, for example, a rare hadith nobody heard of. If it's sahih, no problem. But people they don't care if it's sahih, they just want it to be gharib. They don't care about it whether it's reliable or not, they just want it to be something rare. So nobody knows what it is that they have. Al-Maqid Al-Sabi', the seventh principle. Al-Mubadara ila tahsilihi wa ightinami sinni as-siba wa shabab. Racing and taking, let's call it taking the initiative to attain knowledge and taking advantage of childhood and youth. Very important. Especially the younger you are, the more important this is to you. You can still get knowledge when you're old. You can still get knowledge when you're old. However, here, we're talking about someone who's young, take advantage of your youth, take advantage of getting this knowledge quickly and racing to get it when you're young rather than leaving it till when you are old. The Shaykh, he said, Hafidhahullah ta'ala, life is like a flower. Either it will become a fruit through seeking things of high value, or it will be expended. From that which causes the flower of life to bear fruit is taking the initiative to gain knowledge, abandoning laziness and impotence, and taking advantage of the years of childhood and youth, acting upon the command to race towards all that is good, as Allah Azza wa Jal said, فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Race towards all that is good. The days of youth, take advantage of them. Indeed, youth does not last forever. Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala said, I would not compare youth to anything other than something that was in my sleeve and it fell out. Knowledge gained in the years of youth is more quickly internalized, and it attaches to you and stays with you in a way that is stronger. Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, knowledge at a young age is like engraving on stone. Others said, knowledge at an old age is like writing on water. If you write on water, does it stay? It doesn't stay.
The strength of the way that knowledge remains at a young age is like the strength of a way that markings are engraved on stone. So whoever takes advantage of this youth will achieve proficiency, and he will praise his capability when he becomes older. Take advantage of the years of youth, O young man, when you are old. The people will praise your capability. The most harmful thing to youth is procrastination and wishful thinking. Underline this sentence. There are two things that kill you in youth. One is at-tasweef, saying I'll do it tomorrow, and I'll do it tomorrow, and I'll do it tomorrow. And the second one is what the Shaykh he calls طول al-amal, wishful thinking, such that one of them procrastinates, sailing the seas of hopes, and preoccupies himself with daydreaming, telling himself that in the coming days he will be free enough to make time for it, and he'll be clear of disturbances and hindrances. Here I want you to think about something. What's the difference between lofty aspirations and wishful thinking? Tricky. I told you your dream should be in the stars, but the Shaykh's telling you don't make your dreams in the stars. How does that work? It's all about whether you're acting and working towards it. That's why the Shaykh joined between procrastination and wishful thinking. There's nothing wrong with having big dreams if you're working towards those dreams.